Hold that thought.
Okay, Rich.
Okay. The opinions and comments expressed by members of our panel do not necessarily represent that of this station or our sponsor.
Or anybody else.
Or anybody else.
From the John DeVita Recording Studio, located at a secret and still undisclosed location on the great northwest side of Chicago, we are proud to present yet another installment of our monthly roundtable panel show, Meet the Chicago Historians. And now here's our co-creator, producer, chief electrical engineer, and good friend, Mr. John DeVita.
Thank you, Rich.
Yay!
Thank you, Rich. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. On Monday, August the 20th, the subject the panel will be talking about today will be about comic books, the funnies, and much more. And now, to start today's program, once again, here is our announcer, Rich Lang.
Now, here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan.
Thank you. Folks, we have a mixed bag of a day today. We started out so sunny, and we got a bunch of rain. Everybody get some rain in their neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was even hailing where I am on Garfield
Yeah.
Ridge,
They-
south side.
The
They
gang
say
was all here.
downtown.
That's a lot closer to the equator. That's probably why.
They say downtown they really had a
Yeah.
rainfall.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
spouting water and
Driving
the
up
lake.
there for a short time was a real downpour.
Uh-huh. And I did not have any.
No. So here we are, and we're hoping to have a lot of fun today, as we always do. Even more fun because the topic is the funnies. You may call them the comics, you may call them the funny papers. And I don't mean any kind of little thing you roll your cigarettes with, or whatever. But they've been around a long time, and they've been a big part of our culture, really, and our way of life. And also, we'll try to devote a little time to their illegitimate cousin, the comic book, which has come under fire at times and continues to exist to this day in a sort of a different way than they did at one time. But anyway, before we get going, I want to tell everyone I spoke to our charter member and former host, Vic Justino, about 2 weeks ago, and he has something lined up where he may be on a weekend radio program on one of the big stations.
Ooh,
so let's
good.
hope so. He's
Yeah.
well known. To you folks out there, Vic was the guy who was always on Cop Talk. He was known as the professor there. He always had historical questions, and he's done a lot of shows. And he was on with Eddie Schwartz years ago, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was
yeah,
on Eddie
sure.
Schwartz. He's pretty well known, and he taught just as somebody else did here. He taught at Truman, though, I think, didn't he? Did he teach a course at Truman?
You know what? He has taught courses all over DePaul,
Yeah. Oh. Wow.
Francis Parker, and you know what? I love the title of his I guess you'd call it, his course was Chicago Inside and Out.
And the voice, you're hearing the voice of Ken Little,
Yes, and I was with
another professor.
Yes.
We have and another charter member.
Right, and I was with Vic Justino on Eddie Schwartz's show for 18 years, from 76 to 94. Yeah, we do about 3 or 4 shows a year. And and Vic called me 2 weeks ago and said happy Fort Dearborn Day.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Well,
hope
completely unnoticed here, right, in Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, they have a park now called Fort Dearborn Park. I guess it's 16th and Calumet, and so they had a picture of it there. But they're downplaying the word massacre, so
Yes.
it isn't. Yeah, it's,
Couldn't say anything like that.
no,
right?
couldn't say anything like that. So
Even if it was a massacre.
even though, it was, they killed women and children. So,
Mm.
but I wish the best for Vic. He's an interesting guy, and when we've had him on, you know what's fascinating about him is that if you mention something to him, he, like all of us, I think it clicks in in his
Got a computer-like brain there.
exactly, and he
Yes.
remembers everything. And of course, he's he's from an Italian neighborhood. He would like to have more input and about the Italians. They were interred during World War II, and then he'd like to have a statue or monument to Johnny Weissmuller, who is an Italian, but he's from Chicago, or the first West Point graduate ever killed in a line of duty was Ensign Ronan, who was killed at Fort Dearborn, which was a battle of the War of 1812. So.
And you mentioned Fort Dearborn. If you go up to State and Wacker, they have an outline of what the perimeter of the fort was. It's
Right.
in metal, and there's
Yeah.
a plaque, I believe. But I've never seen that one.
Michigan and Wacker.
Michigan and Wacker?
Michigan,
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Wacker,
You're right.
yeah,
Actually, Michigan.
yeah, yeah, southwest
So,
corner. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
you're
know
right,
if there's
Michigan
a plaque, but
Something that says
Yeah.
this where it was.
Is there a
Something
plaque?
in the
Something
side.
embedded.
Oh, there's something
Yeah, it's
embedded in the ground. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were
it's
It's
able.
about as big as a bungalow, I think. It's not much bigger.
Well, part of it is that the river has been widened, and so it has, taken some of the
Pushing it up.
yeah, some of the land isn't from the original fort isn't there, but it's fascinating to me. I just picked up Milo Quaif's book on the history of the Northwest, and it ends in 1835. That's when most histories begin.
Northwest Territory?
Yeah.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
was the Northwest Territory.
This was the Northwest, yeah. We were an outpost,
Right.
right.
We were the frontier.
We were the frontier,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
That's why they call it the West then.
The West.
Western University, right?
Yeah, right, Northwestern, yeah.
Abraham Lincoln was always known as a Westerner.
Yeah.
He was considered the leader of the West,
West.
Yeah.
because this was
Yeah.
frontier country.
Absolutely.
Before that, Shenandoah Valley was considered Old West.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. The concept West kept moving west.
Kept moving west, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And now for the rest of the story.
yeah, the west of the story. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
One, I was going to say, one wise guy once said that if the British had the same sense of history that we do, instead of the Tower of London, there would just be a plaque in the sidewalk saying, "This is where the Tower of London used to be."
Yeah. It'd probably be a shopping mall or something. And speaking of the Northwest Territory, now we're digressing a little bit, but that's okay. We got time. Someday Hollywood, there's about 3 or 4 people that Hollywood should get a hold of and do the story of. One would be George Rogers Clark, who came from Virginia with a secret mission with a really small number of men. He was promised a bunch of Kentuckians, yet even less of them came. And he managed to get the whole Northwest Territory.
Yeah.
With around Vincennes, Indiana, and whatever it was, just west of St. Louis, and
Yeah, he captured a couple of British forts, and they marched out from Virginia. I tell my class, well,
Yeah.
Greyhound was on strike that week.
That's right.
So.
and I think Detroit just folded. They surrendered over there.
Yeah.
But here's a guy. I remember he was called. I think it was in Vincennes. The local Jesuit priest came to him on behalf of the people, and he said the people wanted to know, when we're interned, will the men and women be separated? He said to them, "You're not going to be interned." And we immediately won the population over because they were Frenchmen who were now under the British rule, and so they changed hands a few times there.
Yeah.
But through just clever manipulation, just decency,
Yeah.
he won it over.
Yeah, and that was, of course, we have John here, who's really the expert on. I think, John, you read or wrote every treaty that the United States ever got involved
This is
in.
John Koscielko, another member.
John Koscielko, right?
Well, you might have a crack that I read. I was just reading about Benjamin Franklin when the British and French were fighting an earlier war, and Louisbourg, the great French fort at Louisbourg, had fallen after a long siege. It had gone on for many, many weeks. And someone came up to Benjamin Franklin and said, we have been praying in all the churches throughout the British Empire for the fall of Louisbourg, and it proves that God is on our side. Louisbourg finally fell. And Franklin said, well, I wasn't brag about that, because inside of Louisbourg there were only 2 Catholic priests, and they were praying to keep it French, and look how many weeks God was listening to them.
Yeah. Woo.
What's sort of interesting in War 1812 was the Masons had a little input to it because of the fact that both sides were Masons, and when they met, even though they're opposition, they still had their Masonry alliance. So sort of humorous in that respect.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
listening to Al Opitz, another member. We're introducing in a different way today.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, yeah.
We only got one person left. Who is it?
Who is that? Yeah.
Jeanette, want to say hello?
Hi, and I hope you're going to enjoy this wonderful panel. As Jack had said, that we are going to think of some comics and the history behind it, and I'm enjoying the panel before we even get started.
That's right. It's a little
We
warm.
have a great day.
We're warming up the audience right now.
Is that we are?
See them
Okay.
over there in the peanut gallery?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So before we get into this, we still have a little bit on the museum scene. Science and Industry still has display about storms over there. Museum of Science and Industry, 57th and Lakefront. And we can also see the U-505, the German submarine.
Ooh.
Oh, they also got the Mars lander there.
They do.
Yep, reproduction of it.
Yeah.
Already?
It's a new exhibit.
Is that from
The latest one, the one that
Yep.
just oh,
Really?
Is
I
that
was
from,
there last week, and it's in bright colors there.
Is that from NASA or from Mars Candy Company?
Oh, NASA.
Did anyone partake in the air show? Did any?
No, I,
Of
no,
the family
No,
or
you
friends?
sort of stay
Yeah.
away from that because of the crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
said
Very.
2 million people
Only.
attended.
Only,
yeah.
isn't
I
it
can't walk
amazing?
anyway.
Beautiful
So.
Yeah, I
weather they
can't
had.
either.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But just seeing a little bit about it on
Yeah.
the news was really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Some
Yeah.
some years ago, on the weekend of the air show, my mother was out in the backyard, and some of the planes, there were some Stearmans, I think, that were in our vicinity. I saw them. I was at a different location helping my dad with something, and I saw these Stearmans. She said she looked up and she waved, and the pilot evidently saw her because he circled back and he did a little show for her. I mean, he did some loops and right over where she was, you know, and she waved. So she got her own private air show.
There you go. It's all who you know.
You know, speaking of the air show, can we talk about this a little bit?
Sure.
About 10 or 12 years ago, my wife Deanna, the lovely lady, the saint, you know, who's lived with me all these 42 years,
Ooh.
taking
You
care of
had to
me.
be a saint, yeah.
And we were at the preseason game at Soldier Field. The weekend, it was the weekend of the Air and Water Show, and Mike Ditka was coaching the Saints at the time. So they were in town, and we were there. And it was maybe in the second quarter, late in the second quarter, and they were testing a plane for the water show, and it was a sonic boom, you know. So the New Orleans Saints thought it was halftime. They ran off the field. 3 plays later, the Bears scored.
Oh, God. Oh,
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
yeah.
Keep it daytime job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at the Jardine plant one time. I had a little rest time. I was over on the North Shore there. And B1 came over.
Wow.
You want to talk about rattling a car?
Oh, boy.
That thing has a lot of noise.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
Yeah.
Was that?
B1.
B1.
Yeah, that's a noisy plane. I don't care who
Yeah.
they tell you. You know.
They had me out on a walking post. It was around 1987, 88. I was worked in Chicago Lawn then, 63rd and St. Louis station there. And I was around 63rd and Kedzie. And this hadn't happened in a long time. There was a sonic boom. So people are coming asking me what happened. You know, all of a sudden they ask the wizard. What's the wizard? I don't know what happened. Sounded like a big noise to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I wouldn't
Well,
know.
that sonic boom does bring back a memory of remembering on the news again that they got this immense amount of phone calls, and same idea as you being asked, because the boom could be heard, you know, it might have been the lakefront or wherever it was happening, but you could hear it, you know.
Oh,
way-
sure. 20, 30, 40 miles
Yeah,
away.
well,
definitely.
When
and
I
it-
was in the Air Force, we had Armed Forces Day there one time, and as the jets were departing, one of them let off the afterburner.
oh,
And you
my.
want to talk about a nice explosion, they'll do wonders for you.
Yeah.
And in the morning, they still had some early morning, I guess they're called penalty flights for some of the pilots. And of course, they would light off the afterburner so that everybody could hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the funniest one, though, the whole bunch, was one guy was mad, so he went over to barracks and lit off the afterburner. And they said it was so loud it actually knocked people out of the bed.
Yeah.
So it's quite.
But see, Jeanette, a sonic boom, we never heard of it before.
That's
It was
exactly
brand new, you know.
Right, and we were so geared to hearing about the atomic bomb, or
and,
someday
yeah,
they're going to come when
bombs
we
and-
don't expect them.
Yeah,
and so you got very
oh yeah,
shook
it scared
up.
it scared
And
the
it
hell
did shake the
and
house.
it did.
I
It
remember
probably
that.
blew windows out and
Yes,
etc.
yes,
and
that far
They
away.
can do wonders, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it was.
That's
Yeah.
why they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I was going to say one other
Yeah.
thing is that a lot of the planes, or a number of the planes that were involved in the water show, they were stationed out at I guess either Glenview and Great Lakes, and my co-author Father Rignelis went out there, and you could approach the planes within about 20 or 30 feet. You know, and some of them were warplanes, and he was taking, you know.
I got
Pictures, you
photographs
know.
of the
Yeah.
Thunderbirds when they were over at Hare Field one time, so I was right up there.
Yeah.
And you watched them come up there in the formation and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it was quite a sight.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, yeah. Here you could approach these planes, and
Yeah,
he took
no, I-
pictures, and you know.
That was before 9/11 for the most
Oh
part.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
sure.
many
Yeah,
things.
years
Yeah.
ago. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember the old Hare Field. I used to go out there when I was a kid, about 16 years old. We used to park almost anywhere.
Yeah, and watch.
Go up there into the observation deck, watch the planes take off, and the control tower was right off the side there. The door was wide open.
Yeah.
You walk right into it.
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was
more.
a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Every yeah.
We're talking
Didn't
about
know
that.
how good we had it.
Yeah,
That's right.
right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, now getting back to the museums. Field Museum still has that one that relates so well to Chicago, the story of Genghis Khan is there.
Yeah.
You see that?
Oh, your dad, huh?
He was he was the third mayor, as I recall.
Right after Ogden.
Right after Ogden, yeah.
And
Boy, did he have a machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of precinct workers behind him there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then we have the planetarium, still has Welcome to the Universe, whatever that's supposed to mean. But of course, there's a big different view of the universe than it used to be.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever hear on the? I'm watching a little PBS again. The multiverse, the idea of a multiverse, like there are parallel universes.
That's
They're-
a theory for years.
Years,
I
yeah.
read it in comic books.
They're-
for a
yeah,
while.
more than we're aware
Here's
of.
the catch
Yeah.
on there.
Yes.
You don't go out to the planetarium. The planetarium is just in the planetarium building,
I understand. It's Planetarium and Astronomical Museum,
right?
Yeah. Ooh.
not astrological.
Yeah.
Well, one time they were the same thing, weren't they? Astronomy and astrology.
It
No,
really
not
wasn't.
really.
No, no,
In ancient-
astrology is.
Ancient times, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, there
That's what I
was.
mean. Yeah, way back. Way back.
There was
then.
all the
When
study
you
of
were
the
a kid.
stars.
When you were a kid, yeah.
It's another comedian comic.
Didn't Montezuma have his?
His
Revenge,
revenge.
yeah.
Revenge.
No, he had that too, but he had his astrologer executed because a comet showed up unpredicted in the sky or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Of course,
there was a show last night on TV, the Sumatrans, 3,000 years ago or so. They were able to chart the galaxy, and they were quite accurate. And they showed a comet or a
Meteor.
asteroid coming through. It blew up, and they said that was the cause of Sodom and Gomorrah having a rain shower there of meteors,
Yeah.
and so they related it to the asteroid that the Sumatrans recorded 3,000 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was
right.
quite an interesting.
Oh
little
yeah,
show.
when you look
So
at
we're not any there's a lot of things that happened 3,000 years ago that we're still trying to catch
So-
up on.
I
When
know.
we say what's new, it is. It's
There was a great
3,000 years old, huh?
supernova around the year 1054, and they have found evidence of it in artwork around the world. They found paintings and where there will be this huge star in the background because this thing burned for probably a couple of years. It was probably visible as a supernova, and it was so impressive that I think Chinese and other artwork shows this from that
That
time
sign,
Well,
period.
the other thing with this asteroid too is they could show where it hit the top of a mountain, knocked the top of the mountain off before it came to ground
Yeah.
and blew up.
well, look at meteors. That big one that landed in Russia. You know, in
Right.
That was
1888.
Tunguska,
right.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Tunguska.
That was
That's still-
1908.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, 1908. Yeah, flattened. You know,
Yeah.
a million
huge sections of forest.
million acres, etc.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's
that's
still not
Yeah.
recovered completely, so
Well,
we
there was
really
nobody
don't.
living there at the time.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
fortunately, just think of it hit
Oh, my.
Yeah, they'd
a
come down
major
in
city.
London or
It's out of
Paris.
the
or
Yeah.
Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Now I remember the word. There were a lot of people got killed there. I don't know how big the audience was or the
Yeah.
people there, but they said that the meteorite came down. They were about 400 degrees. Anything that came within
Oh,
proximity of it is
sure.
burned.
Yeah.
Real critically. And the few that survived were really bad shape.
Well, that's why sunspots. How they affect our atmosphere and our weather, and we're talking about global warming. What happened this year? Obviously,
This
it's
has
a
gotta be a
crazy,
mystery of all.
mystery, and
This
The hottest July in record, even
Yeah.
including the Dust Bowl years.
yeah, and yet look at August 20th. What's the temperature out today? About 75 or
Yeah.
so.
You're
we're-
erratic
usually-
well,
weather,
now we're like 5 degrees
warm
below.
winter,
Right.
cold,
Cold,
spring,
yeah.
very,
Well,
very different.
Very crazy.
I remember, how was it, 1988 was it, that they had a real hot spell? Seemed like it happens about every 12 years or so, 10, 12 years.
There's
yeah.
there's a cycle.
And,
That was middle 90s. I was back
Yeah.
in Missings then.
Well, it was 88
Yeah.
was one, too, and the 90s was another one.
Yeah, and then earlier, I remember, working in the early '80s, went to 26 below,
Mm-hmm.
and it
I was outside.
Yeah, the what do you call it, wind chill was like minus 80.
I
We had a
remember that.
wedding reception.
Well, we worked my partner and I worked that night, the coldest night in history. We're out there in the projects, where up and down the stairs, and
Yeah,
after, not daytime either.
yeah,
I forget the date myself, but it was in the 80s. We went to a wedding just because, we've got to be there,
yeah, yeah.
And when we arrived, the whole time we were there, she had about 20 guests, and the people that were missing were her parents and main relatives.
Yeah,
The roads were
could-
so icy,
Yeah,
Oh.
could not.
and the hall had no heat because the power.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
oh,
It
boy.
was just a
Yeah.
tragedy.
Yeah,
Mm.
And
yeah,
there we were, just stuck.
yeah,
We wore clothes that were for a snowstorm.
Yeah, right.
And then changed at the hall.
Yeah.
They got
Yeah.
married in January.
In
or
January,
Yeah.
yes.
You could see
yes.
your breath, I bet.
Yeah.
Almost. I didn't
bump
have a
into
breath.
it. You could see it and then bump into it. And the
Yeah.
I mean, it
I
was.
remember. Yeah.
We often talk about it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
made us go?
Yeah.
I
Hey,
remember.
Andy, you remember that great
Huh?
reception there where you had your gloves on?
I remember
Oh, it
I
was
was
so
working
sad.
for the company I was working for. They had a transformer outside, and it got so cold that it actually caused the arcing of the transformer.
Oh my Lord.
Oh boy.
And so you got 4,000 volts arcing there.
Shooting out of you.
Yeah.
And the whole west side, or the whole, you could see it's just like a big explosion. The whole area lit up,
Yeah.
and it was really wild.
Hell, go out there and chop that ice off.
And then again in the 80s, something I was a little surprised that this July was the most in temperature, because I too can remember a week or two of 100 every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About in 88, 87, right there. It was
Yeah.
100 every day.
I know they
Yeah.
say that in the 50s, in 1954, 55, there was a real
I was
spell
just-
of hot.
Yeah.
And I have this, I was a little kid. I have this vague recollection maybe of that
55.
summer, when it was
That's
really
when I
hot,
remember.
Yeah, I was at school, and the windows were open and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
For some reason, we survived because there was no air conditioning at the time.
You knew
So
that.
it was-
Yeah.
And none at
Yeah.
home either.
Not at home. How did we get
Nobody-
by?
My
An
dad.
8,008 BTU in
Yeah.
the bedroom.
Yeah.
Everybody was in there.
My dad had that 440 air conditioning in the car.
Yeah.
You roll down 4 windows and go 40 miles an hour.
But there's a great
Yeah.
story about Yogi Berra, back in the late 40s, and he's driving in New York and sees and it's stifling hot outside, and he sees a buddy of his, and he motions to him so he pulls over and picks him up. The buddy gets into the car with Yogi, and Yogi's got all the windows rolled up, and it's probably 115 degrees inside of the car. And he says, "Yogi, why don't you open a window?" He says, No, this way everybody thinks I got air conditioning."
Whoa.
Whoa.
Okay.
I like that.
Let's see, on the museum scene again, Mr. William Bill King Kong Kugelman is absent today. He's on assignment.
Oh.
You know anything about the fire museums? Are there any opening? Are any open houses?
I was
going
going to, this coming Saturday. The last Saturday of the month, 5218, 5218 Southwestern.
So that's the 25th?
Yeah, it'll be the 25th, yeah. We'll be there from 10 a.m. till 2, or until, we still have visitors.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a live demonstration of the electrical system that was used in the fire department, the dispatching companies. Mm-hmm. We have a program, and plus 2 fire trucks that are completely restored, and a lot of information. I'll be there, conducting tours.
4 Tops, I'll be there.
4 Tops.
Yeah. But anyway, this is at Old Company 123.
Old 123.
Is located where?
5218 Southwestern Avenue.
Not Boulevard.
Not Boulevard. No, the Boulevard's cross street. Plenty of parking, front and back. Yeah.
You can park right across at the Boulevard side, too.
And you can park on the Boulevard side. Yeah, and it's a great location. And you know what I have to tell you, and this is amazing. Every we have visitors that come. They'll call and they'll say, "Can we drop by?" Because we have other people who are working there all the time. And every time we go there is something new that has been donated. And, we had somebody come in with a hand pump, built at the shops, made out of brass. We put it right on the fire truck. It was so authentic, and they had painted it up, Mm-hmm. Somebody came in with a hydrant, and Al had a picture of the hydrant. It was out at the, they think it was in Jackson Park, out at the World's Columbian Exposition,
Wow.
Had Chicago threads. It wasn't a typical Chicago hydrant.
Mm-hmm.
You come in there and there's a model there, fire truck model, not, and, people coming in there and somebody will say, oh, do you remember so-and-so? Oh, yeah, I remember so-and-so, or we got a record on him. Yeah, your dad was on, and it's Old Home Week.
And that is the last of every month?
It's the last Saturday of every month, yeah. And
good to know.
Yeah, if you, starting at 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. 10 to 2 is what we say, but we're there until...
Well, we did a remote from there, October 10th it was. We know why that is. That's the day that Joe Gentile died.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, believe me, just to see these trucks is worth the trip.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a piece of history and what we relied on so much.
I know, that the one engine, it could still be in service today, literally. It's a 28, but we had it down at the... it was at the Water Tower Place when they had a play on the Great Chicago Fire, and people just it attracts, and we were giving out literature, and it was great. In fact, it was funny. We had it parked on Pearson, which is an eastbound street, but we had it turned west, facing west, so that people could see it from Michigan Avenue.
Oh, it's one way east, right?
Yeah. So somebody said,
did you get it to ticket?
No. Somebody said, well, how are you going to be able to pull out? And he said, watch. Lights and sirens, all the traffic stops.
We're the fire department.
We're the fire department now. And you know what? They had a chase car. Once the fire truck got out, chase car never caught up to them. No. And they were only going, speed limit, but, never caught up. Then they got a 52nd and Western. These guys were still a mile behind them, and so.
That reminds me, a guy came into Red Cassidy's Tavern in Canaryville, and he says he wanted a double shot. He has the shot, and the bartender says, what do you want for a chaser? He says, I'm broke. So anyway, one last item we have on the museum tour exhibits, and I have a little item from the Chicago Sun-Times, dated Thursday, August 9th, 2012. Exhibit shows World War II eyes through Malden, World War II through Malden's eyes, and it's at Cantini, which I would say Cantigny, and most of my friends out in Southside would, which is in Wheaton, and that's part of the Forest Preserve system there. That was Colonel McCormick's estate.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have a display on Bill Malden's cartoons from World War II and before and after. And Bill Malden, of course, for years, he was a Sun-Times editorial cartoonist here. And when President Kennedy was assassinated, you could send to the Sun-Times and get a print of this. And I've still got one in the living room from then. I was a senior in high school when that happened. So anyway, he did up front in the Stars and the Stripes. Anybody familiar?
Yes.
With Willie and Joe.
Willie and Joe.
Willie with the two dog faces, and anyway,
Yeah.
that runs through September 3rd. We're going to try and get out there on the weekend because I'd like to see these firsthand.
Yeah.
Bill Malden is one guy. He looks so young all his life.
I
He's
know.
dead still.
Yeah, crew cut. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And he was in, there's one of these programs that you'll see again every Memorial Day on PBS. And they interview some of the men from World War II, and he's one of them interviewed. And it doesn't make mention that he's the Bill Malden, but he's saying he was at a, saying that he was at a Memorial Day observance in Italy, and Lucien Truscott was his general, the one who's portrayed by John Doucette in Patton. For he wanted to do the amphibious landing.
Yeah, right.
And the one who's, I won't be drinking for a few days, General.
Yeah, right.
That was probably the biggest part he had as an actor. But
Yeah.
anyway, I digress. But anyway, he said...
Great character.
Yeah, yeah.
He even did a couple of Supermans.
Yes. Usually.
Anyway.
You're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians. We'll be back momentarily following these announcements.
Well, friends, now that the summer season is almost over, it's time to start getting your home ready for the winter season. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it, but it won't be long before the snow and ice storms will be here. So now is the time to check the roof on your home. Make sure the roof is in good shape. If you have a bad roof, your attic or crawl space will get mildew or mold, and you could get drip, drip, drip on the ceilings in your rooms, which will damage the ceilings sooner or later. You are going to have to get your roof replaced, so don't have double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing at 630-616-1359, and Mike Best will drive over in his shiny red truck with the ladders on top. Best Brothers Roofing sign on the doors. Mike will look at your roof and give you an estimate and go from there. So once again, don't have drip, drip, drip on your ceilings or double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing at area code 630-616-1359 for a free estimate on your roof. Best Brothers Roofing, area code 616-1359. Why don't you call today and get ready for that unpleasant season that'll be coming up very shortly. And now back to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center right here on the northwest side of Chicago on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network.
And now back to our panel and today's discussion. Jack?
Thank you. As I was saying before we were so abruptly interrupted, we're talking about the Bill Malden display, and it's at Cantini in Wheaton. It runs through September 3rd. It would be an excellent. I don't think there's any in charge for any admission out at Cantini. You can go to the.
I think to see the home there's a charge. I think if you go through the mansion there's a charge.
Well, I got a real estate agent to show me.
But the museum, I'm not sure about the museum.
But they got the World War I museum from his outfit. What was that? The Colonel's outfit. I don't remember.
Was he
they
in
got tanks out
was
there
he in
and
the
all kinds
big
of stuff.
red? I'm not sure.
Wasn't it the big red one? I don't know.
I don't think it was that
Because he
one.
was one of the early units. They were in the early battles. Cantini was one of
Yeah.
the earliest pitched battles.
Over there.
Right.
Right. That one. The war to end all wars, right?
Yeah.
Or to
Jack,
make the world
if-
safe for
Jack, if
democracy.
I could say something, they have upgraded. It's got World War II and
Oh yeah.
Korea and Vietnam. So it started originally at World War I. As Al said, they have tanks, artillery pieces.
What?
Tank.
You're
tank.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Boom.
No, but it's got to be 8 or 10. How many years would that be? At least 5 or 6
Tell you
years
the
ago.
South Sider anyway.
My aunt, for her 90th birthday, the cousins rented, and it didn't cost hardly anything from they said. So we had it out there, even though they don't live right nearby, at Cantigny,
Yeah.
or Cantigny, folks,
Yeah,
whichever one you choose to
That's
go to.
It is an active place. I mean,
Beautiful,
there's
beautiful.
all-
Yeah.
Golf
all-
course?
It's a nice.
Yeah.
You know,
I think they do, yeah.
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 Yes, you're right.
He had an airport out there. I think he
Right.
flew back and forth. He didn't,
Meigs
drive
Field
a-
would still be there if Colonel McCormick
Absolutely.
Something
no
to
mayor
say.
would have touched
No,
that
yeah.
and prevented him from flying in the Tribune Tower.
Quite a
Is it-
profitable field, but the trouble is they kept on raising the landing rates until
because
No,
they,
it's great,
they
yeah.
wanted to close it,
Right.
and yeah, it's a shame, you know.
If for no other reason, it was convenient for, say, captains of business or industry coming to Chicago,
Sure.
going to O'Hare shuttle. Nixon, when he visited here in early 1970,
The president would
Oh, all of-
helicopters
yeah.
would fly in.
5 helicopters. Which one is Nixon in?
Yeah.
And I was on state and Michigan and Jackson for that post. So he came right by. My fiance came by. She wasn't wife yet.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, stay here. The president's coming by." So right by, just as close as to John's chair over there.
Yeah.
Everybody away.
I had the same experience later years with George Bush the First. I was at the Adler Planetarium and Astronomical Museum when President Bush was leaving from Meigs, and I saw the motorcade. I saw the motorcade. I had a little pair of binoculars with me, which made it better. Followed the motorcade as it
Everybody
came
does.
to Meigs Field from. He was spoken at I think the Conrad Hilton Hotel, and then saw the helicopters lift off and fly.
Yeah.
Most impressive,
That's it.
patriotic.
It is.
To see this,
Oh.
these half-dozen Marine helicopters with the presidential seal
It-
yeah.
go by that.
It can
and it was
choke you
it was
up.
a
It's
beautiful,
so- yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
cloudless day, just a beautiful day. And against the skyline of the city, it was. I didn't have a camera with me. I wish I had a camera.
But
I'll
you
tell
had
you-
your binoculars.
I had
Yeah.
binoculars.
I'll tell you a little funny about Nixon. He came. I was stationed at Selfridge Air Force Base, and Nixon came in, and he came in through the terminal building. And one of the buddies of mine was a electrician. He was all greasy and everything else from the planes, and he was up there, and he BS'd his way up there, and he always pulled the door for Nixon to come through. And then when Nixon came through, he went over with his greasy
With
paw.
greasy-
He shook hands with him.
No, was he president then or vice
No,
president?
he was campaigning. I seen
Yeah.
Kennedy came through too. I seen him from the back of my hangar there, but he was a convertible showing off as usual. But
John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
The last thing I heard about Maxfield is that they're going to make it a camping type of site. that-
Campsite, yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Get
know
rid of-
what
yeah.
get
was
rid of all
the
the birds then, and that's all.
Yeah, I mean the correlation being what to
Who knows?
have people experience that or
I heard it was for underprivileged.
okay.
Well, yeah, but I think,
But-
well, I don't know. I think almost anybody. The thing that hurt me is that's where the fire department helicopters and our jet boats, our sea rescue boats were
That's
there.
right.
It's in the middle of the city. Now
It
they're out at
is.
95th Street,
I
you know,
think that's
in
a huge
Calumet.
one.
Oh, that-
That's,
that-
It seemed like it was a terrific asset to the city to have this little airport right in the
Oh,
middle
right
of the
in the
loop.
middle,
You know.
yeah.
Exactly.
Something. No, I mean,
Yeah.
New York doesn't have that. No other
Right.
great
No,
city
but-
has a
yeah.
little airport right in the
Yes.
center of the downtown
Well,
area.
Detroit has one, but that's beside the point.
I said great city.
But the other thing was that right after you closed, Meigs and Glenview was closed. They come out and said, "Where are we going to land our planes?"
Yeah,
Oh, gee, I wonder.
You
Yeah,
forgot, huh?
yeah,
You forgot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Somebody's. Somebody's.
Oh,
But yeah, I just thought I
Heavy
did too.
breathing.
I have a son that used to work there and
Yeah, yeah.
guide the planes and
yeah.
but yeah, it was you
Hello.
said the acid. I mean, it's just another a feather in our cap. Yeah, we've
Sure.
got that too.
Yeah.
Well,
We've got that.
fortunately with Chicago, it's you have a city where you don't have to
Yeah.
bother with votes or city councils. I
Well,
mean,
That's-
what you didn't have to worry about
that's
public
right.
opinion,
Public
or the newspapers.
opinion,
I mean, you
no.
have just one person who makes the
Yes.
decisions for
Right.
everybody, and
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny
It is.
though. The Constitution for Chicago says it's supposed to be a weak mayor, strong council.
Yeah,
What
right.
happened?
Yeah.
sure.
But one
Well-
thing. Well, okay.
This is the same city who had the Shackman decree here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good local joke, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of those, one more, and we're going to get onto our subject. Those different visits by different political people and motorcades. I was working on a detail, and it was Spiro Agnew was here, vice president, was going to, I think it was the Ambassador East. There's some kind of thing going on there. So the motorcade comes by and escort and whatever, and some couple says to me, "Oh, who was that?" I said, "Oh, it was Burt Reynolds." And I think they bought it.
Mr. No. Hey, can I tell one quick joke?
Go ahead, please.
One story about
Oh, no, I can't.
Kennedy, just quick. He's at Martha's Vineyard or whatever, the compound there, and he goes to Mass at St. Michael's Church, by the way, and he's got a pew all by himself. And some lady comes in, she's a little bit late, and she's looking around. Where the hell am I going to see? Where am I? She sees this one guy in the middle, so she walks in.
He's president now, right?
He's president, yeah.
He's president.
Yeah, he's president. And Secret Service is, all over. And so she says something to him, and he moves over. And so she spends So she didn't even recognize him as the president. And so after it's over with, of course, they let the president leave first, and then with his bodyguard and all that. And then they come up there. "What'd you say to the president?" She said, "Who?" President Kennedy was there. He said, "What'd you say?" She said, "I said, move over."
That's possible.
That's a good
Right?
I met Newt Gingrich one time. He was campaigning for, I think, Epton at the time. And he was just one of these badges, and they came out with these other ones. I said, "Here, you got to go put this on and make it look a little better."
Bernard Epton, right?
Bernard Epton, right.
Retired state senator, wasn't he?
I knew Bernie Epton because I served in the legislature with him. He was a truly great guy.
Yeah,
I
he was.
really liked Bernie. He was one of the most intelligent, erudite, polite, gentlemanly, courtly, old. He was just a
everything
great guy.
yeah.
Just a
A lot
great
of
guy.
newspapers did that too, because
But,
both
yeah, they-
Yeah, they
Washington-
made an
Smeared him
ogre
like
of him, and this
terrible.
was
Yeah.
this was one of the finest men in the legislature.
Yeah.
But,
How do you ever get into
And that was
politics?
the problem.
Yeah, what?
And that was the problem.
He went in the wrong door.
Well, the problem was that Washington and Epton were friends. before
he
the
thought.
campaign.
Yeah, he thought.
Well, they
Well,
campaigned all right, but then the newspapers started hammering away.
they had the debate. Harold Washington started talking about Reaganomics, and it kind of floored him. He said something like, "Oh, you must mean the National Republicans," instead of going with it,
Yeah.
I was once, whenever I would go to Springfield, I knew exactly where the halfway point was between my door and the parking lot at the Capitol building. There was a little farmhouse there with some trees, a little pond, and I would always stop there and just take a break. Just stop, for 5 or 10 minutes, and it's good to kind of take a break when you're on a long route like that. And one time, car pulls up alongside of me, and the window rolls down. Here it's Bernie Epton. And he says, "Are you okay?" I says, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." He says, "I saw because he recognized the legislature." He says, "I just want to make sure that you weren't having a problem." I said, "No, I."
Very concerned.
I says, "I like to take a break, and and he says, I should do that." He says, "I'm not." He says, "I think I've been asleep for the last 10 minutes." So he said, "That's a good idea." He said, "That's a good idea." He said, "I may
That's a
start
good
doing
way
that
to rest.
myself."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He said, "I think I dozed off about 50 miles an hour."
Yeah,
But that was the kind. He would stop to make sure you were all right.
Yeah.
You were near the pond, right? He probably said, "John, that's what's killing all the fish."
I had spent a weekend, and I brought this up another time in Washington, D.C., and I was now on my way to see the inside of the White House, and I was in a very short line at the time, and I'm looking up, and I said to myself, "Boy, does that guy ever look like Lincoln?"
Yeah, it was,
And he
yeah.
came over and gave
Yeah,
an
he
That
said-
was
autograph.
the first president I
Yeah.
met.
Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Anyway, it was Clinton, and but I was
You
not.
stay away from him.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I was not anticipating seeing anybody like that, and so I envisioned this man in the doorway as a man who resembled him, Well, as we got closer, there was this huge cake, and he was cutting it, and I cannot recall what the reason was for this cake, but in the end, he ended up serving us and giving us he had
Yeah.
cake on his hands, and
Oh.
and he was laughing, and I thought, my God, what a finale to a trip
To a
that
trip,
was
yeah.
fantastic.
Been in
And,
the VIP line.
oh, who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you never know where you're going to meet
Yeah,
somebody.
no,
That was
no.
Well,
I was in-
a similar funny joke was we were taking a tour of White House years ago when Johnson administration was in power, and somebody yelled out, "Lady Bird's in the Rose Garden." Everybody started rushing. You talk about panic with the Secret Service.
My,
That's so
yes,
funny.
yes, yeah.
She, I think, was a lovely lady.
I
too.
don't know. I have no idea.
Claudia. What's her name?
Really?
Lady
Yeah.
Bird's
Claudia.
name was
Claudia.
Claudia.
Claudia?
Oh, okay.
Claudia.
Her, she was named that nickname by her
Claudia.
nanny.
Yeah.
Claudia
Yeah,
Taylor,
yeah.
I think.
LBJ, little. They had
Little Beagle Johnson.
Johnson.
Even the dog was LBJ.
Okay.
I like Light Bulb Johnson.
Light Bulb, yeah.
When he was turning out.
Yeah, when he was turning
Lyndon
out the
Baines
lights.
Johnson,
Linda-
Lucy Baines Johnson,
Johnson.
Linda Bird.
Yeah.
Lady Bird, and
Little
Beagle
Beagle.
Jr. He wasn't an egomaniac, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
was-
had a problem.
I was once in Washington, D.C., and I was taking the tour of the Capitol building, and I'm walking out on the grounds. And at that time, there was a Republican senator from New Mexico, Senator Domenici,
Oh,
and a
sure.
Democratic senator from Arizona, Dennis DeConcini. Well, I see a senator walking toward, and I recognize him, and I look and says, Senator Domenici. Well, I got it wrong. You know, the names were so close.
Yeah.
He says, no, DeConcini. And then I felt terrible. I am so. He says, don't apologize. Don't apologize. He's half of my colleagues get the names wrong. He says, so don't feel bad. He's really, don't feel bad about
So
it.
down to earth,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
He chatted with me, asked me where I was from.
Yeah.
I told him I'd been to Arizona, and my dad owned some property. He wanted to know where my dad owned property in Arizona. Just a very,
one of the guys.
you know, just a chance occurrence. And I always thought, well, you know, having had that experience, don't worry about it. Don't worry.
I'll tell you another funny if you want to. I was one of these town hall meetings with Daley's group comes in there and all this stuff, and had to go to the washroom, so I was standing there. And guess who comes up next to me?
Oh,
The mayor.
Forrest Gump.
The mayor.
no kidding. Now there.
Oh yeah, I said Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
So we talked. He's a pleasant guy when he's not.
Oh,
on
yeah.
the service.
Oh, yeah. No, that's right.
The other one is the same funny. I was over at the Rosemount
Theater.
Horizon.
theater there,
Horizon,
theater there. But
Theaters.
anyways, I was just came out of the
It's
washroom.
an
Guess who was waiting in line? There was
Allstate.
Madigan was waiting in line.
Yeah.
See,
Well,
yeah,
you know-
you just
Him
never
and
know.
Stevens were buddies over there. Right? They were
Yeah.
up front talking. Yeah.
I was going to say, when you mentioned Vic Justino before, when we would do the Eddie Schwartz show, Eddie would come on at 11 and would interview a guest usually, and we'd come out at 12. Well, sometimes the guest, and that's where you meet him in the washroom. John Eisenhower, I had a chance to talk to him. Senator Chuck Percy. In fact,
Yes.
we had brought in a cake for Ed, and I said to Senator, he was a United States Senator at the time, I said, would you mind coming back in if you got the time to maybe present the cake to, it's going to be a surprise and cut it. And the other one, I'll just say it very briefly, he had Judge Lefebvre on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And he and his wife Ginger stopped in unexpectedly. You remember him? He
Remember
was
the
the
name.
circuit.
The name.
He eventually
Yeah, I
got
remember the name.
caught up in something and
Yeah.
went to
I
jail.
haven't
And
heard that name in ages.
Yeah.
but I do
Yeah.
remember
Judge
that.
Lefebvre.
Was he
And
head of the? Was he the chief justice or?
No, I don't
Traffic
think
court.
he
Traffic
had
court,
been
I mean.
traffic
Yeah.
court, and then he did
No,
the
they had
circuit.
Greylord the scandal at the time.
Yeah.
Because even DeLeo was caught up in that, but they never prosecuted
Yeah.
him.
Anyway, so the judge and his wife, they walked in and they were unexpected, and we were doing the show from the they had a little at Bradley Place, and they had a little auditorium there at the very east end. Anyway, so Eddie sees him in the audience, says, "Come on up, Judge." So the judge made this remark. I thought it was funny. He said, "Does anybody have any legal questions?" Nobody put their hand up. He said, "Does anybody have any illegal questions?"
You happen to mention Percy. Oh, excuse me.
No, that's it.
Duncan?
I'm finished. Yeah.
Did they ever solve his daughter's
No.
murder?
No.
Never did.
No.
Remember how they accused his wife? Did
Yes.
you recall
They
that?
accused
Yeah,
everybody,
sure.
And they also
Yeah.
accused
Well, they-
Percy because of the fact that he was running for election at the time.
Yeah.
They-
that
For
was a
governor or
horrible
for senator
time.
then? He ran for
Senator,
governor
I
and
think.
lost to.
Did he? I
First
don't.
he ran for governor and lost.
Yeah.
but he lost to. I
First
can't
time
remember.
he ran.
Yeah. I
he was
don't
senator
recall.
at the time, I believe. I don't
64.
remember.
I think
Did
he was
did he run
senator.
against,
They felt it was inside, though.
Yeah.
It was an inside case. There's no break-in.
No.
Not Adelaide 3, was it?
No. That was Kerner. I think he may have run against Kerner and lost.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last time. Anyway,
He was nice. I met him once. And it seemed like a nice guy, but that's all I can say is I met him.
who's that?
Percy.
Percy.
Let me see. I
And-
saw him too. It was at the which was it now? The Puerto Rican? No, I'm sorry. The Polish. I know all these parades we did. The Polish Constitution Day in Milwaukee and Damon around there. He pulled up. He got out of there. He went, "Good morning, officer." He was tuning up his voice. Good morning.
yeah. And he did march in the Puerto Rican parade too. He was, my people, with his arms around. Yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
funniest candidate out there is Judy Bardapinka.
I love Judy Bart
and her
Topeka.
accordion.
I love Judy.
Still going strong.
I see.
Yeah.
I've met her at a few state sales, like
Down
out
to earth
in
person.
Oak Park. Oh
Yeah.
I opened the door for her one time. Saw her coming up, and
Such a gentleman.
such
Such a chivalry is dead.
yeah. No, it is not in my family.
It's just mortally wounded, probably.
No, it isn't. It's.
I mean, overall.
No, well,
Enough, all right, enough warm-up, gang.
okay.
We're 45 minutes into the show warming up. Okay, the
Where's
comics.
the
the
Preliminaries
funny
are
papers.
over.
yeah.
The comics.
We're talking about comics.
The funnies.
We're
the
running a
funny
little
papers.
late, folks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, our time is just about up. See you later.
They're a feature that have been with newspapers since the late 19th century. And the original ones were actually in color, and that was part of a lot of them were just panels. Like
Yeah.
early ones were like The Yellow Kid,
Yeah.
which was about slum life of the Irish kids. And, of course, you had Buster Brown,
Yeah.
who ran for years, and later on, of course, the Buster Brown shoes.
Shoes.
And
Sure.
Tig was Tiger, yeah.
The Yellow Kid only ran for 3 years. Everybody
Was it?
knows that was the first
Yeah.
newspaper cartoon. It only ran from 1895 to 98.
Was that?
Wow.
Who was the? Was it Outcall?
Outcalt had an odd name. I think it was
O-U-T?
Frederick Outcalt.
O-U-T-C-U-L-T.
C-A-U-L-T.
Yeah. And then he had the Yellow Kid would have some saying on his written on his looked like a nightshirt, a yellow nightshirt he was wearing all the time.
Yeah.
But there's always your idol there, was Smokey Stover.
Smokey Stover.
Smokey
yeah.
Stover, he was my idol.
He ran for about 40 some years.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
car I know that could run on two wheels.
Notary Sojak.
Yeah.
No, you whatever. I
Do we know
never.
the origin of that was Sojak?
Yeah. What the hell does that
yeah.
mean? I don't know.
Notary Public, Notary Sojak.
Notary
I try to run it backwards. It doesn't mean anything.
No,
Every
nothing.
strip had that in at
You're
least
right.
one.
But-
There'd
yeah.
be, it'd be on a calendar, or it'd be
Yeah.
on, there,
Be
it had to
hanging
be
on the
something.
wall like it was a license or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Notary
Sort of
Sojak.
like
But,
Kilroy was here.
that was
about
Bill
it.
Hall.
It was a
That was-
strange
this was-
comic
yeah.
strip. I mean,
It was.
the chairs were like gloves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guy with the chief would be sitting in a chair that was like the hand.
Yeah.
All these odd things, all these weird things would be on the wall.
In the back, there
hanging
was
on
something
the
always
wall.
going on.
Something weird
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
That was one of the better strips out there. I enjoyed it a lot.
Now,
After we panned it, and you say,
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of the better ones. Yeah.
Bill Holman did it, and he did it for over 40 years. And if you see one of his strips from 1930 something or 1973 when it ended, look, the art looked the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
So it was.
They never bought a new fire truck.
They had budget troubles.
They had budget. Yeah.
And the I didn't realize until recently that he was wearing a fireman's helmet backwards. That was his hat.
That was his hat.
Smokey
Yeah.
Stover.
Oh, yeah.
Good name too, isn't it?
Yeah, it
was
is. Yeah,
just-
Smokey Stover.
It was everything a comic strip should be. It was amusing. It was entertaining. A
Yeah.
little bit complicated with the stuff in the background.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
not too serious.
Yeah.
It was
Too
all
heavy.
Mutton
Remember
Jeff.
Smokey Stover? Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Sure,
yeah.
Tribune.
One
I
of
see.
my
I kept.
favorite
I kept
cartoons.
one. Yeah, I
That's
kept
Mutton
one of
Jeff
the
was
one of the
always a good
panels.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
Well, when
And
you
then,
brought up
Captain and the Kids.
Okay.
That was one of the
Okay,
earliest.
now-
That goes back to
Cats and-
the Katzenjammer.
Cats
kids.
and Jammer kids.
Interesting story there. That was created by
Dirks.
supposedly William Randolph Hearst got a copy of this. Max und Moritz was a wood carving cartoon print from Wilhelm Busch, a German. It was about the two bad boys in Germany. It's available. You can get a copy, a reprint from Dover Publication. Still has it. So he said to someone, "Can't we come up with something like this?" So Rudolf Dirks was a young son of German immigrants from Chicago. He got it, and he came up with the captain and mother. And that was not the captain was not the father.
No.
Mother, I guess he was the stepfather. She came to live with him as a housekeeper originally. But anyway, so he had Hansel and Fritz could do
Early
no wrong.
version of the nanny.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
right.
They're inspector, right?
Right.
They're
Yeah.
always up to no good. Of course, they could do nothing wrong in the mother's eyes, right? Now, Dirks went on some kind of a vacation, and he was off for some time. So they handed it over to another staff cartoonist, Harold Knerr, K-N-E-R-R. This is the New York American, which is King Features Syndicate, the Hearst newspapers. So Dirks came back and he wanted his spot back. Well, they said, well, he's doing it now. So he went over to the New York World and did The Captain and the Kids
Right.
with the same characters. So it went to court, and the judge ruled, just like your signature, an artist's characters are his own. So he could not stop him from drawing these. He called it The Captain and the Kids. First he called it Hans and Fritz, and then went to Captain and the Kids. And for years, it ended somewhere in the 70s.
And they both lasted
Yeah.
for most of the 20th century. The two cartoon
Cats
strips.
and Jammer Kids is still there.
Yeah,
being
they
done by
still exist,
somebody
yeah.
named I looked all of this up.
The captain and the kids disappeared in, like you say, in the late 70s.
79 or somewhere
yeah.
around there. It went for 6 decades. It ran.
You know what?
So
You
you
know
had
what
two.
Cotton Jammer means, don't you?
I was just going
Like
to ask you
nightmare.
that.
No, hangover.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
isn't
Like
that
German word
interesting?
for hangover.
It's like cats are scratching nightmares in your head or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
It doesn't really translate totally.
Yeah.
One of the earliest cartoons from that era was something hardly anyone has heard of called Airship Man. And it came out in 1902. It was about this fellow who had this kind of little personal dirigible, and he would fly around the world. He'd fly to the Andes, and he'd get involved in escapades. It only lasted 2 years. It disappeared in 1903. Why 1903? Because that's the year of the Wright brothers.
Sure.
And all of a sudden,
Oh,
this new
so-
gadget comes along called the aeroplane, which is
Right.
more exciting and more plausible that you could have your own airplane than you could have
Yeah,
this
your
little
own.
Then
personal
flew you around
dirigible.
here.
Dirigible.
So Airship Man disappeared after only 2 years of public, but he was that was one of the really early and for a short time successful
Well,
cartoons.
the other one that relatively new was Terry and the Pirates.
Ah, I
Yeah.
was going to
Nope.
bring that
Remember
up.
that?
And then you also had a cartoon strip that called the Teeny Weenies.
Right.
That's an
Teeny
old
Well,
one.
Weenies.
That's
Terry,
very old.
Terry and the Pirates was a radio show, I think,
Yeah,
too.
it was
Also,
sure, it's spun
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
That was on
Listen,
TV too.
And
the
I
radio
think
show,
a movie,
It was
too.
a serial.
Was
It was a
serial.
television. Now, the interesting thing about the adaptation to the screen, that actor William Tracy, remember him?
Oh,
He
sure.
was the Juveniles.
Yeah.
In the serial, the 1940 Columbia serial, he was Terry. On television, he was Hot Shot Charlie. So he played two different parts
Yeah.
on two different incarnations of that.
I liked him too. He was
Yeah.
really sort of a funny guy, like Eddie Bracken.
Yeah.
You know, and
was,
you liked his looks and his comments.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be very.
Now, he was Pat O'Brien as a juvenile in Angels with Dirty Faces, when the two of them was.
Oh, okay.
A guy named Frankie Burke was the young Cagney. He looked like a young Cagney. Remember him?
Yes.
Never went
No.
much where.
Yeah.
But much where. Well, hardly anywhere. But he was the juvenile, and he did a lot of other things. He was in what was that one, Tobacco Road? That
I've never seen that.
Never
was
saw
from
it.
the stage too.
Okay.
In
But,
respect to Terry and the Pirates, I had brought up earlier that the comics also in World War II could throw in little words that would have to be decoded by someone, but it would always be something like a war secret or a message or something, and it was Terry and I couldn't think of the group, and it was Terry and the Pirates that where they first noticed this happening. Now, how authentic, and how serious it was, I can't say because they never did take it out of the paper,
Yeah.
But one comic strip that I, as a gal or whatever, liked was Brenda Starr.
Oh,
Reporter.
sure.
And she
Yeah.
was a reporter, or not like a detective, right? Just
No,
a
reporter.
newspaper
Yeah.
reporter.
Dale Messick.
And okay, you're right.
Dale
And
Messick.
the point I'm bringing out is it was to me one of the first inspirations of, gee, you didn't have to be a secretary, and
Yeah.
you didn't have to be,
Yeah, nurse
whatever
or
was down
something.
the line of female. And at the bottom of, she was always like the last one they were portraying, and at the bottom of her comic strips, they would put paper dolls. We would cut them out with the clothing, and it
Yeah.
would interpret her wardrobe and
Yeah.
so
Never
on.
seen
So,
that.
so
Never
as
seen that.
kids, that was like a two-for. You got that.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
did
Got
she
them
did the
down.
cartoon for 40 years. She did it from 1940 until 1980. She retired in 1980.
I do know I followed
Yeah.
it for a long time, but
Yeah.
I
And
you don't
it
hear
lasted
too many women.
It continued. I think it recently met its demise. I think they recently ended Brenda Starr, but it was until just a few years ago. It was still being
Now,
still
there
being
were
published.
a couple of adaptations of that too. I think one was in a film. I don't think it was a serial, but a film.
Oh, they
Brenda
did
Starr
a
in the
Brenda Starr
40s.
movie with they did
Yeah,
an
some of them
80s or 90s film
On
with
television, yeah.
with girl was always with Bob Hope, the striking brunette, tall
See, that
brunette,
narrows it down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
tall brunette.
Hetty Lamar.
No,
No, she was in.
Langford?
No, more recent. This movie was made in like the
Joe
80s.
St. John.
No, even more recent than that. I can't think of her name.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
I
the
don't
other
think
the other cartoon I always enjoyed was Rube Goldberg.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He
Boob
was always
McNutt?
wild. They still his name's carried on because they have programs out there who could do the most steps to get something accomplished.
Yeah, right.
Well,
yeah.
they have some kind of scientific competition every year
Yeah.
with the colleges like that.
Still
It
have
would
a,
like,
a Rube
for
Goldberg.
anybody who doesn't know, you start off with a bowling ball rolls down an incline, it hits something, this knocks this over,
Yeah.
this strikes a match but lights that fuse, which starts this going. So all the way down the line, they'll do something and then like turn a page or something simple like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, to this day, anything complicated, they say, boy, what a Rube Goldberg
Goldberg, right.
contraption
Yeah,
that is.
There you
Yeah,
are. I
anything
knew
that's
the
goofy.
expression was.
You know, one that we haven't mentioned, and I followed this, was Dick Tracy.
Oh,
That's Chicago.
Lord.
At Chicago. He was actually a Cicero detective, you know, because that's where the crime was.
Yeah, he was Chicago.
So
Chicago.
you
Yeah, it's sort of,
Chicago
it's sort of
He was
analyzed
in
all that,
Chicago,
huh?
yeah.
after Chester Gould left though or died. That was I didn't care for him after that.
Yeah, what
And
kind of...
he, where did he live? He lived out in the northwest suburbs somewhere.
Woodstock.
Was it
I think
Woodstock?
it's Woodstock, yeah.
Woodstock has the
Yeah.
museum.
There's a museum there. They premiered that movie, 1990 picture with what's
Beatty.
his name,
Warren
Beatty.
Beatty.
Which was
There.
a pretty good picture. I thought it was
Yeah.
a pretty good
It was.
picture.
It didn't catch on like they wanted
It was
to as a
cartoony.
franchise.
I mean, they
Yeah.
stayed
That's
faithful
right.
to the cartoons.
They
And
stayed like with
all
the
fancy colored
Flat
clothes
top.
on.
Yeah, right.
there you are.
Yeah.
Just going to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
who do
primary
you
colors.
think-
I mean,
Yeah.
Who do you think Flat Top might have been in his character? I mean, like one of our mob people?
I don't know,
or-
but they were such weird,
Yeah,
you know,
very.
prune face,
Very.
Prune face.
Yeah.
little face.
Yeah.
What was the guy?
Wait a
He
minute,
must
let me
have
throw
just
it.
made those
Uh-oh.
up.
Let me
You
throw it
have
to you.
been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and so
Cut me
have
out of this
we.
thing. I'm leaving.
Guillotine.
The Frank Nelson.
Exhibitors Carpet Service has changed their name to Carpet Warehouse at 4300 Montrose Avenue in Chicago. And their new location at 440 Sheridan Road in Highwood, Illinois, called Carpet of Highwood. Stop in and see Mike at Carpet Warehouse at 4300 West Montrose Avenue. And the phone number there is area code 773-283-0100, or Brian Muir at 440 Sheridan Road in Highwood, and that phone number is area code 847-266-1400. For carpets in your living room, dining room, bedroom, den, or family room, stop in at either location for a great deal. Once again, see Mike at Carpet Warehouse, 4300 West Montrose Avenue, area code 773-283-0100 in Chicago, or Carpet of Highwood at 440 Sheridan Road. Their phone number is area code 847-266-1400. Remember, if you need a carpet for your living room, dining room, den, family room, stop in and see Mike at 4300 Montrose Avenue in Chicago, called the Carpet Warehouse, or the Carpet of Highwood at 440 Sheridan Road in Highwood, and that phone number is area code 847-266-1400. You are listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment. And now, back to our panel.
Now back to our panel and today's
Can you give them this other disclaimer there?
Brooke
Can you give them the other disclaimer while we're
She
still
was
thinking
with
about it?
him a lot.
They're,
Brooke Shields.
no?
No.
Oh, Brooke Shields? Are we on?
Yeah.
We're back.
We're back.
Oh, we're talking about Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy, a favorite of everyone.
The
We were
girl,
saying-
who portrayed Brenda Starr was Brooke Shields. Brooke
on
Shields.
TV.
In a movie, no, a big, no,
Made for television. movie.
no, it was a theatrical
Was
release.
it?
It was a big budget theatrical release. I don't think it was as big of a hit as they had hoped, but and of course, you know, I always associate Brooke Shields with Bob Hope. She was always a guest on his show.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Dick Tracy, was once said to be the best written and worst drawn comic strip in the papers, because it looked like his early illustrations expect to look like a kind of a diagram. It would also have like Tracy's hat, would be arrow pointing. Like that. But that was his style. It was
Yeah.
And of course, we all know that it was satirized by Al Capp with the character of Fearless Fosdick, who looked almost exactly like Dick Tracy. Fearless Fosdick.
Tracy, he came up with the comic strip and he wanted to call it Plain Clothes Tracy. And his editor said, gee, don't they call a detective a dick? So Dick and Tracy, a detective tracing.
Yeah, right.
So that wasn't just natural.
And I was telling Jack, they had what was known as big little books. They were about maybe 3 inches square, but they were about 2 inches high. And I remember reading Dick Tracy, and they had Pete the Tramp in there. It probably was from the early 30s, so I don't know when Dick Tracy started. But
he was still around the 50s. But anyway, let's get back to Tracy. We're going to leave Tracy so quickly.
Yeah, oh no.
There were plenty of adaptations of Tracy.
What was his girlfriend's name?
Tess Trueheart.
Tess Trueheart.
But they had 4 serials, and they discovered this guy, Ralph Bird. Remember Ralph Bird?
Right.
He was probably typecast after that as Dick Tracy. And he had the right shape face.
Square jaw.
Never be as angular, though. But he was athletic, he was tall, likable. In the serial, Republic Pictures got the rights. They made him an FBI guy. There was no Tess Trueheart. There was some platonic relationship between someone named Gwen, who was a technician. There was Junior was in it.
What about Sam Ketchum?
And before him, it was Pat Patton was before him, who became Chief Patton later.
He was Chief.
No, they weren't in there. So, Smiley Burnett was comic relief, and who else was in it? But it was really very good serial.
Wow.
But once again, it wasn't as faithful as it could have been. So there were 3 sequels to it. Dick Tracy Returns, Dick Tracy's G-Men, and Dick Tracy versus Crime Incorporated. So then RKO in the middle 40s, RKO did 4 features of Tracy. The first 2, I guess he wasn't available. Ralph Bird wasn't available. The actor was Morgan Conway. Did 2, and it was like there was one with Mike Mazurki was. I don't remember which one was which. Mike Mazurki was one split face. One was I forget what his name was.
Are you talking about the guy? I think it was called Dick Tracy and the Creeper or something.
Something like that.
And the guy's name was Rondo Hatton.
No, I don't think he was in one of those.
He had.
I know Rondo Hatton. What are you talking about?
He had a disease that sort of lengthened his face. And eventually killed him. But he was.
He'd been a reporter in World War I, so he was gassed. That was started.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, the pictures were more like the strip in a way, like Vitamin Flintheart was in it, the Shakespearean actor who was always taking the vitamins, and Junior was in it. Tess was played, I believe, by Ann Jeffries.
I think it was, right.
Tracy was always technologically ahead of its time with his 2-way wrist radio.
Right.
And when that became plausible, it became a 2-way wrist TV.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing he had was...
Excuse me, panel, we have a caller. Don Fiorelli, bringing up sports.
The Don of Sports.
Let's hear from Don.
Hello.
Hello, Jack.
Can't hear you. There you go.
Hello.
Oh, can they hear him, Jen?
Yeah.
We're good now.
Go ahead, Don.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
How are you, Don?
We're having a wonderful time. Wish you were here.
No, I do too, but Monday is kind of honeydew day for me.
So what do you want us to do? Change our whole schedule just for you?
Yeah, I said, all the guys, I'd like to join them, but you won't give them a call. So I said, let me call you guys. I don't know what you had discussed, but...
Discussed and disgusted.
You're talking comics, right? And
Comic strip.
Right.
Comic strip, comic books.
Yeah, I have, for you guys there, a couple of trivia questions.
Oh,
okay?
let's try them.
This is in Little Abner. By who created it?
Al Capp.
Al Kaplan.
What was the guy's name that always walked around with a cloud over his head?
Joe Bifflestick or
No,
something like that.
Very hard to pronounce.
Yeah, Joe Bliffstick.
We've all known people like that, haven't we?
Yeah, I have one of them over at Addison and Cicero, Black Cloud, because it doesn't get light out till 10 o'clock.
What was it? Was it Sorrowful Sam? Was that?
No.
No.
What'd you say, John?
It's like Joe Bifflestick. It was all there were no vowels in the name.
B-L-F. I used to pronounce it Bliffstick.
Lipstick.
And you guys remember the Katzenjammer Kids?
Oh, we just talked about them.
Yeah, we
Hans und Fritz.
Yeah,
Hans.
which would be like Jack and Fred in English.
Oh, okay. What were the two names again?
Hans und Fritz.
Oh, yeah, all right. Now, that was the Katzenjammer Kid. Now, Prince, you guys remember Prince Valiant?
Oh,
sure.
Used to take up half of a page.
A whole page, wasn't it?
That was half of when I was reading half a page.
He had a great hairdo.
He was a real
Yeah. Do you remember what his girlfriend's name was?
Alita,
Was it?
Princess Alita.
Yeah. All right. And then
He lived on my
are
block.
are these still in publication or syndicated?
I don't know. King Features has a website, and there's a whole bunch of that they still have to this day, including the Katzenjammer Kids from 1897 through today.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and I know they have High and Lois, Beetle Bailey.
Yeah.
I don't know if Prince Valiant made it. I know there were a couple of artists took over after Harold Foster's death.
Oh, uh-huh.
I can't think of the names offhand now, but they were similar because he had been a book illustrator. He wasn't a cartoonist per se. Because one of his panels, it was like perfect detail in everything. There'd be a battle, and some guy way in the back, his shield had every little detail on it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, they were magnificent
They were-
in terms of their artwork.
Yeah.
Did
Beautiful
you guys,
artwork.
did you fellas talk? Did they make movies out of these comic strips?
Oh, sure.
fellas?
Oh, Prince Valiant. I think Robert Wagner.
Robert
I think,
Wagner.
portrayed Prince Valiant.
Janet Leigh was the leader.
Is that right?
Brian Ahern was Arthur.
Yeah, Lil
Right.
Abner, was that a movie?
They did a movie all about
1940?
Jubilation Tea Corn poem
Oh, yeah.
in the 1950s. They did
That was from the Broadway play.
yeah.
But there was one in 1940 with
That-
Granville Owen, who later was known as Jeff York. He was Abner,
Oh, yeah.
and
Hey, there's a guy I don't know what either name.
Jeff York was in a lot of those Disney things.
No.
But he had been a former boxer, big fella.
Yeah.
And let's see, Buster Keaton was in it as the Indian. What's the Indian character in Little Abner? I can't think of his
I have
name.
seen clips of
Crowbar
that.
or
Yeah.
something, or I forget.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Dick Tracy, didn't you guys talk about a guy named the Brow?
Well, no, we didn't. That was the Brow. Was one of his.
Yeah, unibrow. Yeah.
Wasn't there a guy in there, a character, the Brow?
They all had strange facial
Oh,
characteristics.
yes,
You know,
yeah.
Little face,
Yeah.
prune face,
Prune face,
flat top.
Flat top.
Yeah.
beady eyes.
Yeah.
Grabble Gertie. I think I dated Grabble
Yeah.
Gertie a couple of times.
Yeah, is that right? Wow. That sounds like a fun type
Yeah.
show, fellas.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we're doing our best.
yeah, good luck to you, and
Thank you.
I'll keep in touch.
Hey, when are you doing the show again, Don?
Next, let's see, the 29th, John.
Okay.
Jack, the 29th.
Okay, and remember, everybody out there, you can get a hold of us on WindyCityHometown.com.
Yeah, maybe
Pick
some
all
of
of
the
our
guys,
programs up.
some of the guys could call in, from 11 to 12 if they got a sports trivia question.
Okay. You can
Okay.
do that, right? Everybody promise? Everybody
Sure,
promise?
yeah.
Everybody. I solemnly
I'd
swear.
appreciate it. Take care, fellas.
Okay, bye, Don. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, we're talking about Tracy already, right? Tracy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was unibrow. He had a unibrow that went all the way across.
The Brow was his name, yeah.
The funny story with it is Sean Connery has the unibrow, and they made him shave it, of course, and split it. But that was
God.
He had, Doctor No. Yeah, he had to. They said he would look too good as a movie star with a unibrow.
Maybe as the Brow or some character like that, but not as a leading
in
man.
the 60s, Tracy had a character, this industrialist called Diet Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And Diet Smith invented this magnetic air car. It was a sort of a spaceship that operated on magnetism. And they would always have this slogan in the comic strips: "The nation that controls magnetism will control the world."
Well, the other thing with one of the movie strips, they had a airplane, was a large flying wing.
The one, yeah,
Oh,
the wing, right.
Flying
It
wing.
looked kind of like a future, what's his
V2.
name?
It's like the
Howard
V2.
Howard Hughes thing,
Yeah.
didn't it?
No,
that looked like it.
no, that
You
was
mean the
Northrop.
Spruce
But it was
Goose?
excellent.
No.
It was
Yeah,
excellent.
they had the flying wing was
Late
went all the way back into Germany, and Jack Northrop was the other guy.
Late
that-
40s and early 50s,
Yeah.
we had
This was in the
What
30s.
was it?
Yeah, they had a small plane that's they resurrected, and they do have it somewhere. I think the Smithsonian has it. But the,
What was that? There was a pilot by the name of Smiling Jack. Remember him?
Yeah,
Oh,
Smiling
Smiling
Jack.
Jack.
We digress,
yeah.
though. We're not through with Tracy. We'll get back. Hold that thought there.
Okay.
We'll get back to him. Tracy had a lot more, though, too, adaptations. They had the say Ralph Byrd portrayed him in four turkeys, 4 serials,
Everybody's a critic.
Yeah.
2 features, and a TV series that ended with his death in the early 1950s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was, yeah. And they did I thought, this is so great. I was watching the Cup Show at Random, which it was before. Remember, he was at Random.
Was it
the
Random?
Cup
Sure,
Show.
yeah.
And he had Chester Gould on as a guest. This would be, in the late 1960 or early 61. And he was talking about Yupa was doing this show of Tracy cartoons for TV. Oh, great, I thought. And have some, like the strip. Well, it was nothing like the strip. If there was anyone who'd ever seen them. It was all comical. It was like a Magoo cartoon almost. Beginning, Tracy would... I know that something was up when Tracy got the call, and he called for Hippo Calorie, one of his deputies, by the way, who turned out to be a talking English bulldog with a Bobby's hat on.
Well, they would have those on. That was on
Sherlock
WGN in
Yeah.
the afternoons
Right.
with Ray Rayner
Right.
as the Chicago police sergeant. He had his
Sergeant
Chicago
Pettibone.
and he was at the desk, and he was the one that was controlling everything. And then he would let's do the next cartoon.
Or he'd say,
Sergeant Pettibone.
Hungry Tracy, and they cut to the part where Tracy goes, okay, we'll get right on it or something. In the cartoon, they would show the opening.
Ray Rayner was. Has anybody done a bio of him? Because he was absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
A Renaissance man in
Very
terms of
well,
Chicago
I-
television.
That's one.
And so
Did everything.
versatile.
One phrase
Yeah,
you could say.
and
But he was sort of
versatile and
weird.
just- yeah.
I think he was juiced up on all this.
He did like
afraid of ducks.
Dinner in the Round. and
Yeah,
stuff.
right. Yeah, the duck hated him, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I think he did The Odd Couple with
Shelveston.
someone here locally.
He had a duck on his.
Yeah, it's Shelveston.
Shelveston.
That would bite him constantly.
Yeah.
The duck used to get picked up by a taxi cab, and because I had talked to a gal, and she said I had to pay Shelveston's taxi fare.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have
I
any
had the
pockets.
same experience. I didn't have to pay for his fare, but we were going to the Bozo Circus,
Oh,
and
yeah.
had called a cab. And when the cab pulled up, it was the mean old duck, you know.
And the
my
duck
kids
was
would-
mean, hated
Yeah,
Ray.
but it was, there was
Ray
a
Rayner
kid.
had to walk, but the duck got transported by a
Right,
cab.
right.
There you go.
The duck was the
from United, not
No,
the
it was-
Kingdom.
Yeah,
Or is-
Animal Kingdom
Animal
on Milwaukee
Kingdom,
Avenue.
right,
Sure.
Bernie
right.
Hoffman's Animal Kingdom. Right?
But so
I
you
don't
know,
know
a
that.
kid. I mean, now we talk about it. It was like riding with the celebrity, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
we were-
right, yeah.
So it was just an
You were in the
unusual
same-
mo-
Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
were in the
Boy,
same.
who do you know?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, many
Yeah.
ducks.
She got the
Many
ticket
ducks.
from the duck.
But
That
it
was
was
the
just,
strange thing.
The call came, and he was
Yeah.
nearby, and
Yeah.
he must have thought that would be
Yeah.
clever, you know.
Well,
But,
The
but
other,
that was every time, you know.
Well,
that
the other cartoon that's gotten funnier is Blondie. For a long time, went in the doldrums, and now all of a sudden resurrected. It's quite interesting.
no,
I was
no,
Daniel's
trying to
still
think
out
of his.
there was
Chick Young.
Yeah, Chick Young. There was a cartoon character that they made a number of movies.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Singleton
Series?
and
A television series?
Arthur Lake.
Arthur
Lake.
Lake
What
was
What were his
Dagwood.
children's
Penny-
name? I
Penny
couldn't.
Cookie?
Cookie was and
Alexander was it?
Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Alexander.
At first,
I
he was
got-
called Baby Dumpling. Remember that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
in the
And then-
movies they always referred to
Yeah.
him as Baby
And then
Dumpling.
they changed it.
yeah,
and
and
then
he was-
Daisy was the dog.
He was
Yeah.
Baby Dumpling
And
for
didn't
a
the kids
number.
age
Yeah.
in real time?
How'd you like that for a name?
Yeah.
for a young
And
kid?
Hi, Baby
J.C.
Dumpling. Baby
J.C.
Dumpling.
Dithers, Julius Caesar Dithers.
Oh, really? Is
Yeah.
that what
Was
it's
that
Julius
his
Caesar
boss?
Dithers, yeah.
That was
I know about
Dagwood's
Julius
boss.
Caesar, and I
Yeah.
played him.
They sometimes refer to him as Julius in the cartoon, but it's actually Julius Caesar Dithers.
And
Now,
Okay.
what was the
Blondie-
idea of him always running out and knocking over the
Well, he was always
like
late.
the mailman? Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
but
he
I
was
mean,
very-
Like
and the
period.
next thing
And-
you see, all the letters are flying up in the air.
And of course, we
Poor
were
guy.
fa-
Woodley. Yeah.
fascinated by
I
his
love Dagwood
sandwich.
sandwich. I
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
invented.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, he invented the
Yeah,
Put a
Dagwood
layer of
sandwich.
this
Yeah,
and a layer
sure.
of that.
You
Oh, I
really
think
put
peanut
on her-
butter goes good with cheese.
Yeah,
He'd have a-
wonderful.
A slice of ham and cheese and
Yeah.
a lobster. Yeah. Something else.
Yeah.
Meatloaf. There was a Dagwoods about 87th and Ashland for years.
Oh, really?
It's been gone for a long time now.
Oh.
But it had the picture of him. I don't think they must have squared this
Kinda,
with
yeah.
the
Yeah.
copyright owner.
Yeah.
They had a Dagwood sandwich there.
Yeah.
Herb Woodley was his next door
door, yeah.
neighbor.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mailman.
Did Arthur Lake ever do anything else other than?
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
He did one called Harold Teen before that. He looked like this comic strip.
Oh.
He's the
He was always in a dither.
he was a
That was the whole idea.
an operator. I never thought of that. He was a elevator operator in that movie Topper with Cary Grant. And,
Okay.
That
So
was,
he
that was a
did.
good series, yeah.
Yeah.
Not series. This is the movie of it.
I know, it was about 3
Yeah.
or 4 movies
Yeah.
they made of.
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
she was
Was
such a
Topper
good
ever?
mom.
I never understood the significance of that one enormous button
Yeah.
on Dagwood's shirt.
yeah, Chick Young said he
There's
did
this
that.
one huge, which makes absolutely no sense. I don't know
I
what it
But it
represents.
must-
So distinctive.
But he has
I
the
don't
bow
recall
tie
the
and the
meaning.
one huge button. in the
Right.
He
center
said
of
he
the
did that so he would draw at least one button, and was shorthanding the whole thing instead of drawing several.
Oh,
And he had that goofy sort of hairdo.
yeah.
You know, with
Did we
the-
ever
kind of
know
evolved.
the actress who
At
played
first it wasn't
Blondie?
quite-
We've no Arthur.
Penny Singleton.
Oh, Penny Singleton.
Singleton.
Yeah.
Penny Singleton turned out she was.
There was a brief TV series
She
in the,
was
in
a
the 50s.
singer in her day. and
Yeah.
So there were two
got
series.
that part.
She also was like the president of the Actors Union, so
Yes.
she was a very serious gal.
Yes.
But of course, she
Yeah.
and a very pretty girl.
Very,
Almost
very,
as
and
pretty
very,
as you. Very almost.
She was a
Thank
song
you,
and
but
dancer.
she
I
was-
believe.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
long
Luce-
way to go.
Yeah.
But she was a. You're right.
Yeah,
she had.
and she was a yeah.
You know, we always they were fantasies to
Oh,
us.
sure.
These people, but they were business people,
Oh
and
yeah.
they certainly weren't the character that we knew. You know, of them
they
on
portrayed.
the street. I mean, they were.
Would you ever think of Ronald Reagan as becoming the
Well, there you
real
are.
president of the United
There
States?
you are.
Here's a guy, you know, he's
sports,
a,
you
know,
Told someone that
Sure.
in
Or
1940.
Gene
oh,
Autry.
they would have put you away.
Gene Autry owning.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Half of Southern California.
Or,
Yeah,
right. I mean,
right,
you know all
yeah.
the things that they
Well,
really
Yeah.
did
the other
for their
thing,
life.
Blondie now is a caterer, so she has her own business
It's a
on
great
the
thing.
side. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's they got a double humor.
Yeah.
You know, Dagwood and his business.
Yeah.
And Blondie and her business, and sometimes they mix. So
Yeah.
I guess it's real funny.
And people familiar with the cartoon strip and don't know the origin of it don't realize that Blondie was a flapper,
Right.
and that Dagwood came from a wealthy family, and
Uh-huh.
that frowned on the idea of him marrying this
Other opposite.
kind of wild chick.
Mhm.
And you know, you don't get that if you just read
No.
the comic strip.
Yeah.
You know, as the typical all-American suburban husband and wife, you don't realize the 1920s origin of the story.
And he was disinherited because of that.
Yeah.
Because of marrying Blondie. See?
Yeah.
Very good.
Love triumphs again.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
That should
well,
be.
thinking that I'm
Should
thinking
be.
of Mr. Magoo and
Oh, yeah.
Jim Backus.
Jim Backus, and look at all the different roles that he played. Straight
Oh,
roles.
He was a
Well,
great,
yeah.
great actor.
He was Dithers on the last Blondie television
Is that
series.
right?
That's right.
Is that
Poor,
right?
poor Mr. Dithers, I thought, but you know,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
with Will Hutchins was
I think so.
yeah.
Dagwood, and I can't think
yeah.
what the girl's name was. I think she was the same one that was with on Mr. Ed with Ellen Young's wife.
Oh,
I think she
yes.
might have been.
Yeah.
Can't
But
think
it
of her
really
name. I
didn't
know
last
the
at all.
Yeah, isn't that-
But the first series was
Short-lived series.
Arthur Lake and Pamela Britton was Blondie in the TV
Right, wasn't
series.
Oh,
the same
yeah.
girl as
Oh,
the
Okay,
baby.
that sounds
But
right.
that sounded more like the radio show. Don't touch that dial, which they did on the radio.
Yeah.
Blondie, open like that.
Yeah, right.
Very
now.
distinctive voice.
Yeah, very distinctive voice.
Well, the Fibber McGee and Molly show too did a film. You know, or they were
Yeah,
hoping to
yeah.
And a
get that
short-lived
going,
TV
and it-
series. yeah.
Exactly, and it didn't go as
Right.
good because
Yeah, some radio did not. A lot of radio. I mean, Jack
Yeah.
Benny and Burns, and a lot of them went and became as big or bigger on TV. But some radio did not transfer well
Not
to TV.
at all.
Fibber
No.
McGee and
And
Molly did not.
and everyone waited for that closet to empty
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
But once
right.
you saw
Once you
that,
saw it, you're right.
just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
You're
imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your imagination did so much.
imagination, yeah.
definitely that
That-
was the whole key,
But,
imagination.
It was why Benny almost never did the vault on television, because you could
Once.
never do it. Yeah,
Once.
and it was in later. It was at the end of the series in the,
Right.
in the 60s. You did. But in the early show, you never saw the vault, or because they realized that they couldn't visually do the vault that would be as funny as you imagined it to be
Definitely.
on radio.
Yeah.
There was
That's
no way
right.
they could do it.
Right.
They
as,
always
as
had the caretaker
Right.
down there, and they always asked, "Is it light outside?"
Yeah.
Or
Who's the
something.
president?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is
did the North win or did the South?
Yeah, exactly.
How's
one you-
Herbert Hoover doing in the White House?
He said in the one that this guy who was guarding the vault, he was hiding him from the redcoats.
Good stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
the other cartoon I saw funny was Popeye.
Exactly,
Yeah,
Popeye.
yeah,
Okay, what was the original
Popeye
name
the
of the comic strip, you know?
Man, boop, boop.
Remember the original name of the comic strip?
No.
No.
Thimble Theater.
Really?
Yeah, that was
He started in 1919.
Never
Seagar.
No kidding. Yeah.
Seagar was from Chesterton,
That's very good.
or I'm sorry, Chester, Illinois,
Never even heard of
and he started this simple theater with olive oil and her brother castor oil, and her boyfriend was ham gravy. 10 years later, this walk-on character, this sailor, comes on and takes the whole thing over, Popeye.
Yeah.
If you are driving through the state of Missouri along the Mississippi River, and if you cross over the bridge into Illinois near the hometown of Mr. Seagar, right there, as you come into the state of Illinois, there is a little park with
Yeah.
a statue of Popeye, which I found many years ago. We had gone to St. Louis and drove south and crossed, and there's this little shrine to Seagar, who is from that town, and there's this statue of Popeye. So we've got, we have connections with two of the, we have statues of Popeye, two of the strongest heroes of American lore, Superman down in Metropolis, Illinois,
Metropolis,
and Popeye at the hometown of Mr. Seagar.
And then little old Paul Bunyan.
There's another oh, that's your home. Where's that in? Somewhere in Missouri?
No,
Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, not
Brainerd,
Minnesota.
Brainerd.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
forgive me. There's also a statue of Popeye. It's right in the middle of what is a spinach growing area in Texas.
Yeah,
very
I
good,
would-
very good.
But he sure did a lot for spinach.
He did a lot.
I've had a lifelong love of spinach since Popeye. I thought this is great. I mean, I love
All we
to this
needed
day. I
was
love spinach.
somebody that proved
And we all know
it worked.
Popeye's girlfriend's name,
Yeah.
correct?
Olive
Olive
oil.
oil.
And Bluto
And Bluto.
and
yeah.
Wimpy.
Wimpy was the
Wimpy
Hence
was
the hamburger
Yeah.
chain.
And the
we had
hamburger,
for a
yeah,
while.
exactly.
Well, gladly
Yeah.
pay you Tuesday for hamburger today.
Right. Yeah.
And who owned what was a diner? They go in. Rough House was the character.
Oh, was it? Yeah, okay.
Well,
And,
the other thing was always
Robin-
funny. He was popping the button. He always had a bird there catching it.
That's
That was
it.
That was
Smiling
Smiling
Jack.
Jack.
I don't know who
That was
that
my Jack. The
guy
button would
was.
pop off, and there'd be this little scrawny chicken.
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah,
I got it mixed up. Okay.
Smiling Jack.
Fat Stuff was the character. Was
Yeah,
coming
Fat
off of.
yeah.
stuff.
And
This huge fellow with this shirt that just didn't fit him, and the buttons would always be popping.
hey, poison.
I certainly wouldn't suggest that our host in any way resembled this cartoon
I'm more
character.
svelte.
You know what?
You're
Spelt
much
on
more of a
both
Dick
of them.
Tracy type.
My fir-
Batman. I wanted to be Batman. Of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. That's comic books mainly. It was
Yeah.
a strip also. But who was the other? One other character you never saw his face in Smiling Jack. Downwind Jackson. Remember?
yeah.
His face was always turned away from
He's
the
always turned away. Yeah.
camera, so to speak,
Yeah.
the camera's eye.
What was the idea of that?
I don't know.
Just
I mean-
for probably to keep you guessing.
Okay, I mean,
Reading
yeah.
a-
For our younger folks, Smiling Jack was an aviation cartoon by Zach Mosley,
Yeah.
and it ran in the Tribune for years and years, didn't it?
It was always in the sports section.
No, it wasn't.
Was it?
On Sundays it wasn't, though.
Yeah.
Sundays
Well, on
was
Sundays,
colored.
but I mean, the black and white
You're right.
strip was always the sports
He
section.
always had good-looking women in there, though.
Because
that
they didn't,
always
in those
were,
days, they did not have all the
Now we
cartoons.
know what
on
you
one
were
page.
looking at. You're supposed to be looking at the plane.
There's one other Chicago Tribune classic that we should mention before the half hour comes to a break, and that is, of course, that redoubtable little carrot top, Little Orphan Annie.
That little
yeah.
chatterbox?
Yeah,
The one with curly auburn locks?
Harold Gray
What a legend.
from the 1930s, and they made Broadway
Big
productions
Broadway,
and motion
right.
pictures.
Yeah.
Made a movie
And
with
Andrea
Tomorrow,
McCardle, became
Tomorrow.
immortal with
somewhere in
Tomorrow.
the late 30s. They did one. Edgar Kennedy was Daddy Warbucks in that one. It goes back
The
so
richest man in the world, Daddy
Yeah,
Warbucks.
Daddy
Yes.
Warbucks.
Interesting name. My mother heard this all of her life. One
Oliver
day I said,
T.
Warbucks. Warbucks. I never thought of that.
I
He was a
never-
war, he
yeah,
was a
yeah.
war
He was
munition.
war-
He was a munitions maker.
Munitions maker, right.
It's the I mean, this was Harold Gray was an arch conservative Republican. He had an unabashed political agenda. She was a little kid who could make it on her own in the Depression without any help from the government.
Yeah.
And that was the now the fact that she was the
Yeah.
ward of the
Colonel
richest
Happy.
man in the world didn't hurt any.
Didn't hurt
But
She sure didn't run down to buy any clothes with that or whatever.
no, she had a very limited
and
wardrobe.
Probably it was a story of hope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
was,
right,
it was
right.
that,
Yeah, right.
it was the idea of the American
Self-determination.
spirit
Sure,
that
yeah.
America can come through.
Sure.
That with pluck and hard work and determination, and America
Well,
can
always
come
a
through.
message.
That's
you
where
know.
you're exactly what you were talking about.
Yes.
That message in the background.
Yes, and-
Warbucks. How did he get?
Very good.
Well, there again.
And Gray wasn't ashamed of that. In other
Yeah,
words,
no,
the
he
fact that he
was-
supplied the army during the war, there was
Right.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah.
Industrialist.
What was-
And
the
Arp,
industrialist.
Arp said Sandy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who was the
Sandy, little doggy.
odd job in that?
Punjab.
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 Odd job was
Punjab and the ass.
that's
Goldfinger.
Bond.
That's, yeah, that's the
Punjab,
fellow with the
yeah.
hat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Punjab was him.
Sakata.
Yeah.
But
Now
the
you guys-
Aspen Punjab.
You guys, if no one's mentioned the one that I love, it was on the Chicago Fire Department called Streamer Kelly.
You mentioned, I never remember that
No
word.
one remembers it.
I never heard
And it was patterned after a Chicago fireman. He was downtown, and what I liked about it is that they used actual the strip portrayed actual modern fire trucks, which we didn't have too many of then.
of that. What paper was that in?
You know what? I don't.
Gotta look that one up
recall.
on there.
Yeah,
What
Yeah,
year?
it's
I
a
mean,
good
what
one
years
to
was
look
that?
40s. Yeah.
Streamer Kelly.
Well, we
Streamer
had
Kelly
the
was
Herald,
well-
we had the Sun Times,
Yeah,
we
oh,
had
yeah.
Chicago Sun,
Yeah, the Sun and the Times
The American.
Yeah.
and the Daily News
and the Daily
and
News.
the
Chicago,
American?
the Herald American,
Herald
which
American.
became
Yeah.
Chicago's American.
Yeah.
First
I don't
Chicago
know.
American.
I
Yeah.
would guess
Just
the
know him.
Tribune, but I'm not sure. By the way, just to show you how cheap I
My
was,
mom always called it
I
the Herald
I used to
American.
wrap Christmas presents in with the colored cartoons. You know, wrap it up because
Sure.
But
you know
that is a
sure,
great-
it was,
Well, that's
I thought it was a great.
considered a clever idea.
Yeah, rather than regular
Sure.
Well,
Christmas.
I just had a magazine that was giving you little budget helps, and this woman who wrote it said, "Why don't you use your comic papers?"
Yeah,
and,
use
But
the
just
comic
think-
paper.
especially for
Just
a
think,
child.
when
or-
I was a kid, you had 4 broadsheet sheets, 8 pages of cartoons every and these were
It
much
was a
bigger than what they
section.
call a
We were
broadsheet
talking
today.
about
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I mean, and you would have perhaps 3 or sometimes even just 2 cartoons on a page. I mean, Dick Tracy used to take up half a page, as I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
Prince Valiant was half a page.
Well, the other thing, you used to read
Maybe
them on-
3.
yeah.
Now they have 6 cartoons on a
Now,
page.
if you a
Now, you used to
successful
read them on the
that big.
radio
on a
too.
much smaller page.
Yeah.
a
used to read
successful
them on-
cartoonist like I'm sorry,
They used to read them on the radio too in the morning.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mayor LaGuardia.
Whenever
Yeah,
LaGuardia-
that-
Mayor
that's
LaGuardia, when he had a
It's a famous
newspaper
one.
strike
Yeah.
in New York.
but I was saying a successful comic strip like just a moment, hold it there. Wait, no, hold on. Let me finish this part. Wait, John, wait, Rich, hold it. Just this one. Successful
use the mouse.
cartoonists like Alex Raymond come along with Flash Gordon. They give him 2/3 of the page for that, and the bottom part of it, he had Jungle Jim, the same guy, and his assistants. They always had assistants. Did the 2, and now I think we're going to what?
You're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians. We'll be back momentarily following these announcements.
Attaboy.
How are the tires on your vehicle? Do you need motor oil? Or transmission fluid? Or power steering fluid? Or antifreeze? How about the wiper blades? Are they in good condition? Good sharp condition? Is the washer fluid in your tank full? How good is your battery? Do you need to replace light bulbs? Well, the place to pick up all these items is Berkeley Auto Supply at 5237 St. Charles Road in Berkeley. Stop in and see Tom, and he will help you get any part or supply you might need for your vehicle. Tom at Berkeley Auto Supply has everything you need for your vehicle. He has every tool, part, supplies you might need from the top of your roof to the bottom of the chassis, and from bumper to bumper. You can call Tom at area code 708-544-8350, and they are located once again at 5237 St. Charles Road in Berkeley. Tom's hours are Monday to Friday, 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, Saturdays from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m., and he's even open on Sunday from 10 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's Berkeley Auto Supply, 5237 St. Charles Road. He is just east of Wolf Road by a couple blocks and west of Mannheim Road about 2 miles. Call Tom at area code 708-544-8350 for parts, tools, and supplies. That's Berkeley Auto Supply, 708-544-8350, or he's at 5237 St. Charles Road in Berkeley.
He's one of the reporters, which is actually it's a remake of
The use
front
of the
page.
pictures, descriptions, and accounts of the following program and the unauthorized recording and rebroadcast in its entirety or of any portion thereof is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're
And
back.
Cap.
Okay, well, the other cartoon that I would enjoy was Beetle Bailey.
Beetle
Oh, yeah.
Bailey.
Yeah.
You know,
Now,
I
he's
think
not
I-
in the papers anymore, is he?
No, yes, he
Yeah, he
is.
is. Tribune's got him.
He's in there. He's
Yeah.
not in he's not in any of our major ones.
Yeah.
The Southtown Star, formerly the Southtown Economist,
Right.
Yeah.
formerly
They
just the
brought
Daily
Right.
Southtown.
Yeah.
They have it. I don't know.
Times
why
had it for a while, and then they gave it up. They brought
No.
it. He was originally in the Tribune. The Times.
Oh, he was in the
had
Chicago
him.
American, and then the Trib. Yeah.
But the Times brought him back some year, and then they dropped it. Then
No,
they
the
dropped
Sun
it again.
Times owns that paper. I don't know why they put Beetle Bailey and High and Lois out there and some other stuff here.
I don't know. It's,
By the way, do you know the relationship between the strip Beetle Bailey and High and Lois? For one thing,
Same
Mort
right,
Walker,
Mort Walker.
was a creator along with Dick Brown for the other one, Browne, and Lois is Beetle's sister.
Oh.
How about that? See,
How about
know
that?
that.
nepotism at its best.
Yeah,
Very
right.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
the
Mort
other
Walker
thing-
also did something called Boner's Ark, along with
Yes.
some guy named Jerry Dumas, who still does that, I think. And Mort Walker's still living. He's up there pretty much.
Do you ever read
194
anything
years old.
else other than the comics, Jack? Do you ever read anything else but the comics?
I look at all the pictures.
Do you look at
war's
all the- Yeah,
over.
the war's over.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a cartoonist one time, so
yeah.
Your
We got the bill for it.
Your restrictions on the newspapers, the fact that the Times is printed by a Tribune,
Yeah.
and the Tribune wants to put out a tabloid, so you got the general paper the Tribune puts out, plus 2 tabloids that are printed on there, plus they do the Red Eye.
Yeah.
So all
And
these
they
things
did
have to be
Chicago's-
conformed to a size that they could print.
Yeah, Chicago's today
and
too.
then
I think.
consequently, they're a lot smaller than they used to be.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's that. In fact, you mentioned Colonel McCormick. Just imagine, you're reading in the paper, oh, the Tribune's going to get out of bankruptcy after, or whatever. And can you imagine a colonel, overseeing what bankrupt?
What
how
is
many
this?
newspapers, TV stations?
And he
and-
controlled an empire.
Well,
I mean,
Empire.
here we
I
I
are.
know they own the
Mind
Baltimore
his own.
Sun.
Yeah.
They own the Newsday in New York.
They own
They were
What
Chicago
are the
Tribune,
New York
New York
papers?
News. It was, but the news broke away. There was some
Daily
relative
News.
had the news, the New York
Yeah.
Daily News.
Yeah.
But somebody else has that. It used to be the Chicago Tribune New York News Syndicate for the
Yeah.
Right.
and they owned the paper.
That was the
in-
biggest paper in New York, the biggest
thing-
circulation
was it?
paper.
The thing
Yeah.
that kills the newspapers is the fact that they really live on advertisement.
Yeah.
The dollar you pay for the paper really doesn't count for much at all. But
No.
the other thing is too that the internet has taken over a lot of the news as such. And
Yeah.
you know what the old saying is: if it's on the internet, you have to believe it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
same thing
but
with
it's
papers.
also
Yeah,
free.
I know,
too.
yeah,
every
all the
time you
journalism goes there.
you turn on your computer, why there's little news stories in there.
Yeah,
Oh,
oh,
The
well,
New
Yeah.
York Daily News in the 50s and 60s had a circulation over 3 million.
oh, brother.
Over 3 million. I give New York City, so they had a larger.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it
But
was the
still.
largest
they're like-
circulation newspaper in the
Yeah.
There were
country.
like 7 dailies there or something like that. Too.
They had
Yeah.
7 in the late as the 1960s. I think they still had 8 newspapers.
Something like
You
that.
Yeah.
look
in
at how
New
many
York
papers Chicago had at one time. You had a lot of German papers at one time.
Oh,
You had
I
the
delivered
Polish
the Avon
papers.
Post.
You had
Yeah.
New York had the New York Times, the New York Post, the Daily News, the World Telegram and the Sun,
The Journal
Journal
American.
American, the Herald Tribune, and the Mirror.
Wow.
They had 7, and this was up until about 1963. The Mirror, I think, was the first. The Mirror folded in 1963. That had been, I believe, Walter Winchell's paper.
Oh.
That was
Yeah.
Winchell's paper.
And,
Okay.
and
They were the
Brooklyn
first
had
of
the
those
had their own. They had was called the Eagle, Brooklyn Eagle, and it was.
Imagine 7 circulating papers.
But what do we have in Chicago years
Yeah,
ago?
we
You
used
know,
to have Yeah,
I need more than that earlier.
We had 4 at least, plus the
mine-
neighborhood papers.
A lot of us
Yeah.
remember before.
The neighborhood papers I always considered better than the
Well, it was
mainstream papers.
It
anyway.
was local, and but
Plus the fact that they didn't go out for sensationalism. They had to,
no.
They
But it was
reported
it was
news.
stuff that you wanted
Well,
to know. What the hell are they building down the street here? What what
Yeah,
happened
they're all-
over
Yeah.
here?
There's only one
What's
left.
happening in
More
your neighborhood? The
intimate.
crime.
I was going to say, from my own experience, I was involved in a particular incident 40 some years ago. Sun Times Tribune, little bitty, the Southwest News Herald had the story just as it went down.
yeah.
They had it
Yeah.
totally factual.
Yeah.
But another thing, you talk about our metropolitan papers here. Marshall Field came out with the Chicago Sun. The first publication date was like the first week in December,
Yeah, I think it was.
1941.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a Democratic counterbalance to the Republican Tribune.
Yeah.
But when we're in war, you're supposed to be all united. So for how many years it was just the Sun? I think somewhere on
Oh, it was the Sun and the Times.
Till about
it did say Sun and the Times.
47 or something like
yeah,
that.
and then they merged with the Times. So.
Yeah,
That's right.
and the Times were over in. They had taken over, or one of them took over what was known as the Post. And if you remember, well, there's still a little street called Post Place.
That's it. Okay, I know Post Places.
Yeah, it was on 219 West Wacker Drive or so, and
Yeah.
it leads into the lower level of Wacker Drive. That's
I
because
arrested a couple of stick-up men on that street.
Is that
I'll
right?
have you know,
Yeah.
As
on the
I-
three-wheeler.
I've told the story, it's because of what our host just mentioned, that Orchard Airfield did not ultimately be named in honor of General George C. Marshall, because there was a big push to name the field for the Chief of Staff of the Army, George C. Marshall, and Colonel McCormick scotched that
Yeah.
because he was
Because
not
of
going to permit an airfield to be known as Marshall
Marshall
Field.
Field.
His
Oh,
great competitor. He did not
Never
want
thought
that.
of it that
So
way.
he
Yeah.
started the ball rolling for Butch O'Hare, a
Yes.
combat. Whereas
Uh-huh.
Marshall was just a desk officer, Butch O'Hare was a combat pilot, and that's how we wound up
Bosses
with
like
O'Hare
ORD,
Field.
yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
our first hero. And it's interesting. O'Hare was a Navy pilot, and the base is, is Army.
Yeah,
Well,
it happens. Some
Douglas.
Something that
happens to the best of us.
Yes, I know.
He really wasn't from Chicago as such. You know.
He was not. I don't think he ever visited Chicago.
He
They
visited
sometimes.
Chicago because His dad was a politician here.
I don't. Yeah, I.
Oh,
yeah, but he
more with
was.
the boys, wasn't he?
He
Yeah.
was. He was. He was.
He was the old man was killed, but the
Yeah.
but the
old
I
man
think
gave-
he has some records of him showing up here, but that's about it.
Maybe on a bond drive because after
Yeah.
he shot the 5 bombers down, he was.
But other than that, he had no
relegated.
relation to Chicago except for his old man.
But his
Yeah.
name wasn't Marshall, and that's all. That's all that mattered to the
Isn't that
colonel.
interesting?
Now,
It's still funny though, is they still call ORD. They never changed the.
No,
No, they
never
had on the
changed,
tag,
yeah.
Yeah.
They went out there and they changed Kennedy Field when they changed the name to Kennedy.
Did they?
It
And they
became
said-
JFK, didn't it?
Yeah,
It's not
JFK.
IDL, which is what it when
Which
it was.
is-
It was Idlewild.
Yeah, Idlewild.
Yeah.
They didn't
they
keep
changed-
Claudia,
IDL.
Idlewild, what's the other one? Newark? There? There's three.
Newark,
going?
yeah.
They changed
So-
it overnight.
Yeah.
You know, they petitioned to change it, our designation, but they wouldn't do it.
It came in overnight, just like Daily destroying Megs that way. Or at
Yeah,
nighttime.
yeah.
You got to watch those.
Chicago's first act of terrorism.
Yeah.
By the way-
are you kidding? Yeah.
Maybe Rich, but what is this with Daily and airports? He was going to close Midway. He was going to tear up the southeast side to put in a new one.
He was gonna-
destroys this. What is this?
He wanted to put a lake in Lake
Lakefront.
Michigan. That was what he
wanted
did.
an
Yeah.
airport
Lake-
in the lake.
Lake
Yeah.
Calumet.
That was the old man, wasn't it?
The father,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
father, yeah.
Oh,
An
well,
airport.
his son
They-
wanted to
they-
pave over Lake Calumet and Hegwish.
Yeah,
he wanted to
destroy
take that
Joliet's
over.
side of town.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He and Edgar didn't get along too well, and Edgar said we can't afford it right
Edgar
now.
protected Megs.
Edgar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course
he
we
wanted to
did.
get rid of Megs even earlier.
We need one in suburban Peatone.
Oh, now
That's
we
kind of like
got-
suburban metropolis, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah. Well, the only thing you got around here, other than that, is Pewaukee, or as they call it, Chicago Executive Airport.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
and,
We digress, folks.
Yes.
Back to
Yeah.
the comic strips.
Before we bring our show to a close, we have to speak about the greatest of all American heroes, and he appeared for the first time in the comics in June of 1938, and that is the Man of Steel, Superman.
Yeah.
He appeared June of 1938 in Action Comics.
Number one.
He by the end of 11 issues, they were selling, I think, 500,000 copies, which was just unheard of. They came out that summer with Superman magazine, because no one was going to the newsstand saying, give me a copy of Action. They were saying, I want a copy of Superman.
Yeah. They kept Action going, though.
Action, yeah, they continued it, but they all launched a new comic called Superman.
All Superman stories in there.
And
that was quarterly originally.
The interesting thing is how quickly he moved across he moved across 4 different media faster than a speeding bullet.
Wow.
Because in January the 16th, 1939, the comic strip black and white first appeared in the newspapers. And by 1941, they had a readership of over 20 million it's unbelievable. So he goes from 38 comic books. 1939, he goes into newspaper comic strips. In November of 39, they come out with a Sunday color Superman comic strip. 1940, he appears on the radio with Clayton Bud Collier. His real name, Clayton. Real name was Heermans. Clayton J. Heermans, but his stage name was Collier, as Superman, and Jane Alexander as Lois Lane. And in 1941, 4 years, 1941, motion picture cartoons, animated cartoons. Max Fleischer did some considered really interesting Art Deco sort of, very little dialogue, but expensive and very successful. So it's just amazing how quickly. And the interesting trivia question they always who was the first man to portray Superman? Well, before George Reeves, there was Kirk Alyn, who portrayed him in movie serials in the 1940s. But of course, before Kirk Alyn was Bud Collyer, who portrayed him on the radio. But before them all was an almost unknown fellow named Ray Middleton. And Ray Middleton was an actor who portrayed Superman at the 1940 World's Fair. He walked around the World's Fair in a Superman costume, having his picture taken and shaking hands with people. So he has the honor of being the first man to actually portray Superman. So it's just unbelievable how quickly Superman, and of course with World War II, Superman was fighting the Nazis. But they were very careful. They would have him fighting spies. They would have him fighting saboteurs, because they knew if they had Superman fighting the Nazis, he would have won the war in a day and a half. I mean, he would have destroyed. So they couldn't actually show him fighting the Nazi war machine, but they found ways to have him in the war effort. And the way they got Clark Kent out of serving in the Army was that when Clark Kent went for his draft examination, his X-ray eyes looked through the wall into the next wall, and he read the wrong letters off of the eye chart, and that got him off for having poor eyesight. So that's how Clark Kent doesn't wind up in the United States
Now
Army.
you tell me.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
You always got Metropolis, Illinois, too.
Metropolis, and of course, Metropolis is clearly New York City. I mean, it's clearly New York City.
But this is the only one that's named Metropolis.
This is the only Metropolis in the country, by the way.
But Jerry Siegel, you have to mention that they always say that the two poor Jewish boys
from Cleveland,
Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster from Cleveland, who created this series. They're very tragic stories, and neither of them really ever made much money off of it. They were really badly.
They sold the rights.
They sold the rights. They thought they were selling the rights for big bucks, having no idea what this was going to become. They thought they were selling the rights to a little cartoon strip.
There was
no idea what was going to come of it.
There were several times though they settled over the years.
They got more money as time went on.
Today, it's their estates are co-owners of the character along with DC Comics.
Today the estates have great rights to it, but I mean in their lifetimes they were living on hand to mouth.
It's interesting too. They were just two high school guys, or just out of high school, and Schuster was originally from Toronto.
Right.
His that Frank Schuster. Remember there was that Canadian comedy team, Wayne and Schuster, for years. They were on Ed Sullivan show. Frank Schuster was like an uncle or something to him. But anyway, they shopped it around different newspaper syndicates.
Well, they had made a number of attempts. All through the 30s, they were coming up with variations on Superman that nobody was interested in.
Finally,
they were getting turned down.
Finally, they got the deal with DC Comics. Was then, I don't know what it was called then, National Comics or something. And they actually had to recut some of the artwork so it fit on the page properly for the first stories.
A couple interesting things. Jerry Siegel worked as a reporter on his high school newspaper. He wore glasses. He was a very kind of a frail, timid guy. Sound a little bit like Clark Kent?
But
Yeah.
And there was a girl on the paper whose name, a girl reporter on the high school paper named Lois Amster, origin of Lois Lane.
yeah.
Wow.
Later, Jerry Siegel married a girl who was a very ambitious career woman who they think the combination of the name and her gave the characterization of Lois Lane. The original editor of the paper was not Perry White. It was George Taylor.
Right,
And
Taylor.
a couple of years in, they changed the name to Perry White. The name of the paper was not the Daily Planet. It was the Daily Star.
Mm-hmm.
And that became the Daily Planet. So
they-
there were some changes, and they didn't identify the home planet as Krypton until a few years later. It was just he came from this planet. The very first cartoon strip shows that he came from this planet far off that exploded, but it doesn't give you the name of the planet or anything.
There's some thought that they changed it from the Daily Star to the Daily Planet because they were syndicating the strip, and there are some stars around.
Real paper.
There's the Toronto
Right.
Star, which, by the way, that's where Schuster was from, so
But
possibly there.
That could be the origin. There was no real Daily
the name-
Planet anywhere in the United
They
States.
say the name Clark Kent comes from
Clark Gable.
Clark Gable and Kent Taylor. The two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Clark
Wow.
Kent.
But
Yeah.
you could almost see how that could have escalated in everybody's mind. That he became Superman.
Oh, yes.
You came out of World War One. You went. It started the Depression.
The country was looking for
Everybody
a hero.
was
looking-
right.
It was a
Everybody,
natural.
for a
yes,
hero.
and
Yeah.
and that was like going home and getting your brother when you have
He
a
was,
fight
you know,
because
you
your
know,
brother
truth,
could get
justice.
everybody.
When the radio show,
Yeah.
I got you.
originally
So
he fought for truth and justice.
Uh-huh.
But in 1942, after Pearl Harbor, it became truth, justice, and the American way.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we all remember George Reed standing in front of the American flag, billowing in the background.
Right.
Yeah, they also point out this was the McCarthy era, so they had to do that too. But that's not
Sure.
true.
So
McCarthy
the
was a-
point though is that you could see where it could happen to us right now. That major leader who's going to march us to the best of what we remember, and we're going to admire that person. And
No Romney plugs for today.
no, I have a quick Romney story, and I don't know if we have time.
You
for
got
it,
time. We got time.
because it
Always
goes
got time
back
for
to the
you.
comics. Doonesbury, written by Gary Trudeau. Trudeau or Trudeau?
Trudeau.
Trudeau.
Whatever.
The thing that it depicts, and this is based on a true moment, it was going to be Father's Day. And so this fellow, Gary, decided to take 4 political leaders and their son and more or less have them say what was the best, and the kids were young at the time, and what was the best thing that, Father's Day meant to you, or can you have a memory you want to relate to? So each kid went through their emotion, and I remember the day he got me a fishing pole, and the other one used the term, we went on a camping trip, and a third one, he took me to baseball. And now it was Romney's oldest son, Tag, was asked, the same question, and he says, yeah, I remember the day my dad gave me $10 million to invest. And
Is this a real story?
It is
or
truly-
is this something Gary Trudeau made up?
no, it truly
It sounds
happened.
like something Gary Trudeau made up.
But okay, but the issue was he did explain that his dad was teaching him how to invest in anything, and he used that remark. Here's $10 million.
He
How
should
would
have
you
also.
invest it?
He also should have said that Mitt Romney, whose first name really is Willard, right? Willard.
It's
Willard,
Willard,
Mitt
yes.
Romney.
Anyway, he got the inheritance from George, who had been governor of Michigan. He had been president of American Motors and whatever else. $30 million or something like that, which he donated to Brigham Young University. So
And George was a self-made man. I mean, he
Yeah.
started out as a plasterer. He was, he was not a college graduate. He was.
And who was George
Bill-
to him?
father.
His father.
His
His
father.
father.
Oh,
He ran
I
for
see.
president in '68, but
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
Nixon got the
I
didn't get past,
remember,
didn't get the
yeah.
nomination. George Romney. He was president of American Motors,
governor of Michigan.
but he was. I mean, he was a self-made man. He had started in American Motors at the bottom, and kind of like the how to succeed in business, and worked his way up to the presidency.
Nothing.
Well, Romney now, the junior Romney, if
Mitt.
that's the way he is.
Yeah.
His claim to fame is making Staples better, or the
One of
company,
it.
or-
That was
Well, that's
one
one
of
of
the
the
companies.
companies.
Yeah, I know.
number
I
of
mean, I'm
companies.
sure he
the
did.
company has like a 700 batting average for saving
Success
places.
rates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not to get, I don't want to get political here, which I'm
No.
a political animal,
But this pertained to comics.
what business is going to invest in some place they think they're going to lose on and close? Nobody has. Not going to. They think you have to. Right?
No.
So anyway, going back to
Getting
this.
back to just an interesting thing you talk about comic strips was, I came across, and this just staggered me. When I was a kid in the 60s, and I was reading Superman comic books in the 50s and the early 60s, they were selling on an average of 750,000 copies an issue. Today, Superman sells maybe 50, 60, 70,000. The comic
That's
book
surprising.
market has just plummeted
Well,
since
yeah.
then. And I mean, I don't know the reason
It's
for
a
it.
different
I don't think
situation.
kids read comic books
No, they
the
don't.
way
They don't
the way,
read
the way
probably
we
much
are
of
today.
anything. Yeah,
The-
that's right.
The most of the sales in the country of
Are
comic
just,
books
are just
today,
buffs, comic
they go
buffs.
through
Yeah.
these comic shops,
Yeah.
which they got teens and adults come to. I mean, I've seen guys. I know a good friend of mine. I was trying to get him down here today. I'm not going to say your name because you wouldn't come.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's got a all-American comic shop on 95th Street in Evergreen Park. I walk in there and people hand them big money and how many titles they pick up every week, you know. And I said I didn't start. I was a big reader and I still buy books on it, reprints or whatever. But I couldn't afford this because I know I'd be buying every title he had come out. And that's where the biggest sales
They
come
were
from
a
now.
dime when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were a
right.
dime.
Yeah.
And
then-
there
The
was
early
a,
60s, I want to say, then somewhere
Yeah.
up to 12
there was a
cents.
12
good,
cents, right? Then 15
secondary
cents.
market. We had a store that he'd buy them for
Buy them back.
3 cents, buy them back. In the
I
in the
remember that.
I used to go to the Plaza Theater on North Avenue, and if they had a sellout crowd, and a lot of kids would get there for the
Oh,
show,
yeah.
first show, and it was like they would babysit until it got dark out, so to move the kids out because they had people waiting, they'd give you a free comic book or a candy bar. And,
I had the best deal of all when I was a kid. I never had to buy a comic book. My uncle, who's also my godfather, had a good friend who owned a. I'm not sure if it wasn't a newsstand. I think she may have had a tavern and a restaurant. Anyway, she had comic books in her shop, and at the end of the month,
She gave
all
it
the
to-
comic books that didn't sell, I would get a stack of comic
I
books
know that.
every month, and I always got Superman and Superboy and all those and the Disney comics. I was the luckiest kid in
What'd
terms
you
of
do with
comics.
them? Did you throw them away?
No, I've still got them.
You still got them?
Do you?
There's a shop in Atlanta
I think
called.
of that
They're
too.
probably
We
worth.
had 'em.
A friend of mine said I should take them and have them appraised.
Yeah.
I've got maybe a stack. Of
Take
comic
them
books.
to the pawn shop out in Las
When
Vegas.
you sell them to one of these shops, they'll never go what they're worth. But anyway, I was going to say there's a shop in Atlanta. It was called Things My Mother Threw Out: comic books, baseball cards,
Yeah, right, yeah.
collectibles.
I
you know.
did that. I did
Yeah.
that to my brother.
Yeah,
One of those clean out the room,
Yeah.
bedroom, and
yeah.
But looking
to this
against
day, I
the
know they
the
were very
superheroes
out
of the
it.
comic strips, did the success of Superman lead really to the creation of Batman and
Oh, yeah.
Robin?
Batman,
Oh, yeah.
Captain
and,
Marvel
and there was
was another
the
one.
big
They
three
were the
were,
big
were
three, I think.
Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Wonder
yeah.
Woman
Wonder
comes
Woman's
very early,
important.
and interesting. The creator of Wonder Woman has one of the most unusual names in comic lore: William Moulton Marston.
That's his real name.
And it, I mean, it's,
Would
it's
say-
strange. It's his
Charles Moulton, it would say, is a
yeah,
pen name.
yeah. And his middle name and last name are almost identical. Moulton
He
and
was,
Marston Moulton.
He was a creator or co-creator of the Polygraph. You know that?
I think I did. I think
Yeah.
I did come across.
With Leonard Keeler?
I don't know.
Yeah, Leonard, or Leonard Keeler.
What comic books he write?
He no, this was serious stuff. By the way, you know what ended the Superman series? There's no more phone booths. Where's he gonna? Or how much clothing did he lose? What, he go back to the phone booth?
Oh, no.
He-
He compressed them, put them in the back
Put
of
it in his
What's
cape.
wrong
He had a
with you?
secret compartment.
Oh,
in
I
his
didn't
cape.
know that.
Yeah,
Well,
he
you're
could
supposed to.
compress his hat and all of his
Everything.
suit into a small
You put it in the back of his
pile.
cape.
And it was a
They
little
never brought that out on
compartment.
television. I used to
Yeah, it was
wonder
in
that
the
too.
comic
But
books.
Did you believe that?
yeah,
Of course. Superman could do
mean?
anything.
No, he threw all. Yeah, he ducked into a phone booth
Yeah.
and.
The interesting, in the
Yeah.
Christopher
Right.
Reeve, in the
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve movie at the beginning,
Yeah.
it shows him. He comes up to a phone booth, kind of looks at it and thinks, "No."
it's only a shell.
But
with
they
a top shell.
kind of pay an homage to
Yeah.
the phone.
Remember,
booth
it was a
idea.
shell top part.
Yeah.
Like this should be bigger. Or something.
And how
He goes
Superman
in-
never did anything to his face. The face of Clark Kent and Superman were totally alike.
Yet that didn't lead
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
to
no,
write
yeah,
it.
no,
there's
it's-
there's a
Lois
TV
Lane never
episode
picked
in
up
which
on it.
he's bedridden because he collided with he's trying to
Yeah.
destroy this asteroid.
Panic in the
And
Sky.
there with
And he
considered
bumped his
one of
head
the best
up.
episodes.
Yeah.
He has his glasses off,
Yeah.
and Perry White, Jimmy Olsen,
They're
and
all
Lois
there.
Lane are there, and they don't recognize
Right,
that it's
right.
Superman even without the glasses.
You know, you brought that out before. He did such a different characterization, though. He was like
good.
such a different person. He was great. He was a very good actor. He really got
Bull-
picked up. George Reeves.
George Reeves, if you think about it, he really was playing a different. I mean, Clark Kent is very different.
Yeah.
He's a different person from Superman. You know, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see. You can
He's
see
a
how
milquetoast,
He's
mm-hmm.
but George Reeves' portrayal of Clark Kent is not the weakling. You know, he's
No.
kind of a tough guy.
He's a gentleman. So he's Miss Lane, right?
But he's not. He's
Yeah.
not the milquetoast that say Bud Collyer really played that part. He would
Or like,
he would change his
Christopher
voice.
Reeve did.
Last thing
Right.
you
Reeve did,
think.
Yeah.
The sad part about it is after the episode was over, Christopher Reeve couldn't get another job, so he ended up committing suicide.
George.
That was
No,
George
Reeves.
There's some question about was that a suicide or a murder.
You know what? And I was going to mention. It's funny you mentioned. You're coming up right now. He locked himself in a refrigerator or something, right? And he froze to death.
Who's that?
George Reeves.
No,
Isn't that how he?
no, it was a gunshot.
Oh,
There
gunshot.
was a movie
Yeah.
a
It was on
few
a-
years ago that.
Who am I thinking
Hollywood
of?
Land.
Hollywoodland.
Very good picture,
Boy,
by
I
the
was
way.
thinking of this guy said he was eating Twinkies with Cutty Sark or something, and he locked himself in the.
Well, that sounds like a lot of Hollywood people there.
There was a great story about George Reeves about the kid who came up to him with a loaded gun and said, "Superman, I'm going to prove how bullets bounce off of you." And Superman's, and he thought so fast. He says, now the bullets will bounce off of
And
me,
they'll hit
but they
you.
might hit one of these
Yeah.
innocent bystanders.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think of that, Superman. You better give me the gun.
Yeah.
Hey, quick thinking.
Yeah.
I know he wouldn't smoke in front of the kids, and he quit smoking because of that too.
Yeah.
And besides what you said before about committing suicide, he was scheduled to do a whole new season of Superman.
26
He was
episodes.
signed on to direct some TV series.
Right.
He had a big tour of Australia coming
So he
up,
had
personal
everything
appearance tour.
going.
He had everything
So,
going for him,
no.
yeah. They had signed for 26 more. They had only been doing 13 the last few years. They signed for a full 26 episodes for the next year. Bigger budget, better stories. And
Yeah.
the idea that he was despondent that he had no future, it's not true.
I must interrupt. You are listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we'll be back momentarily following these
Oh
announcements.
yeah. That's
Are you looking for a good place to have lunch or dinner? Well, I have just the right place for you to go, and that is Sorrento's Village Restaurant and Pizzeria, located at 2318 North Mannheim Road in Melrose Park. Now, every Friday from 5 p.m. until 8:30 p.m., you can enjoy their all-you-can-eat buffet and pasta bar for just $11.95 for adults and $7.95 for kids under 10. Sorrento's is proud to introduce its Friday night buffet with pasta bar made to order, fresh pasta with your choice of vodka or 4-cheese Alfredo or a marinated sauce, plus Sorrento's meatballs and delicious Italian sausage, and a buffet that is bursting with flavors from Rostoli's, seafood, and chicken dishes, and a variety of Sorrento's pizza and full salad bar and garlic bread. Again, just $11.95 for adults and $7.95 for kids 10 and under, all you can eat. You can also enjoy their affordable, perfect full-service catering that might sound expensive, but your choice of Sorrento's, we do the work, and you take the applause for a memorable party, shower, barbecue, block party, or use one of our beautiful banquet rooms accommodating 20 to 200 guests and plenty of free parking. Many catering orders can be even prepared the same day or within 24 hours. Remember, for the best food in town, go to Sorrento's Village Restaurant and Pizzeria, which is located at 2318 Manheim Road in Melrose Park, just south of Fullerton Avenue on the west side of the street. There's plenty of free parking. You can call Frank or Sam at area code 847-455-9440. Remember, Sorrento's Village Restaurant and Pizzeria, located at 2318 North Manheim Road in Melrose Park. They're just a little south of Fullerton Avenue on the west side of the street, and they have got plenty of free parking. Call area code 847-455-9440 for the best food in town.
And now back to our panel and today's discussion.
We were talking about Superman before we were just talking about off the air. We were talking about kryptonite, and when they first introduced it, they called it K-metal. In the first introduction in the comics, they called it K-metal. It was many of these things developed over years. The Superman lore kind of evolved over the years. And it was only later that they gave it the more interesting name of kryptonite. I mean, I think probably everyone knows that kryptonite is. I've seen this in movies, you know, where something we talk about. Oh, only kryptonite can kill Superman.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And there are probably people who can't name the president of the United States, but who know that kryptonite is deadly to Superman.
Right. Uh-huh.
So
you know, John, kryptonite at one time was very expensive, but it's not expensive
the
anymore.
The Paris market on it has been
I know. Yeah, you can.
And in London, I think you can.
Walmart even sells it now.
and that's what I was just going to say. What's the base of it? I mean, what is it?
It was green, and it glowed. And the only in the television series, the only known piece of kryptonite was at the bottom of Metropolis Harbor.
Okay.
Superman had sealed it in a lead pipe and had hurled it into Metropolis Bay, and that was then the only known piece of kryptonite that had reached
It had a
the
habit
Earth.
of showing up everywhere in the comics for a while.
It was all
Even
because it was the only they felt that they had to have. He couldn't be absolutely all powerful. He had to have some weakness, so there could at least be some possibility. So that was
Mort Weisinger,
that.
Who was the editor, and he was also a writer for it. He came up with the idea for one of the serials, I think, because they said there has to have some Achilles heel. So super kryptonite was a portion of the blown up planet.
Also, in the early comic books, he could only leap about an eighth of a mile, which is about a city block, 8 blocks, or he could leap over a 20-story building, which is how you get the famous, radio and then television, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
They had to change that.
Now that sounds kind of prosaic because when they went to radio, by the second episode, he could fly. They weren't going to mess around with having him leap, an eighth of a mile. By the second radio episode, he could just take off.
He kind of evolved. He was hopping like a grasshopper originally.
Yeah, and they thought this is ridiculous. He has all these powers, let's just. And so Bud Collyer had the famous up, and away. Since he was on radio, I had to let people know what he was doing.
He'd go originally for the radio. They wanted to have 2 actors. One was Clark Kent, one was Bud Collyer. They said he could change his voice. Like he'd say, "Well, Lois, I got to go back this way. I'm back in the alley. Here I am back in the alley.
Yeah.
Where I can, because this is a job for Superman."
Yeah, his voice would get deeper.
Like so you knew it was giving you.
This is a job for Superman.
Did you know those on the radio or no? I remember my sister listening to one, but I couldn't say I remember much about it.
Radio. Bud Collyer did it from 1940 until 1950. And then he finally retired, but by the radio was on its last legs. It lasted for another year, and then the radio.
The only one I remember on radio was Jack Armstrong, the All-American
All-American boy.
That seemed to supersede
they
Franklin McCormick
Frank
was the announcer.
McCormick was the announcer, and that's where Frank Jack Armstrong, the All-American boy.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
you stood at attention. This was
Wave your
good.
flag
yeah.
Hudson High, boys. Show
Now,
them.
Batman never had any superpowers.
No.
He's kind of unique amongst the superheroes in that he has no superpowers. He's an ordinary man.
Yeah.
His ability is he's extremely wealthy, so
Yes.
he's able to have the
Bruce Wayne.
Batcave and the Batmobile and all these tools. But also his brain, and he's athletic.
Physical training.
It's all done through through technology and through his criminal detection.
The hope of the
they used
boy
to call him-
wonder.
And they always in the comics they always called him the world's greatest detective.
Detective,
He's always the world's greatest detective.
My,
and he was in Detective Comics.
Right, that's where he started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember it was the summer of 1957, and I was about 10 years old, not quite 11 until November. And we used to read things like, Dennis the Menace and Little Lulu, anything
Yeah.
Disney.
Lulu.
And all of a sudden I bought a comic, World's Finest Comics. It had as a feature in it was a team-up between the Superman and Batman and Robin. Well, I'll tell you what, from then on, I wanted to be Batman. I didn't want to just play him. I wanted to be him. And the thing about Batman was, if you figure it out, anybody could be him if you tried hard enough, if you trained.
Yeah, Batman is
You didn't
plausible. I mean, if someone were you
Kinda
posit a guy
psychic.
who's a multimillionaire,
Kinda
Yeah.
psychic.
Well, they used to be
and had,
millionaires.
you could
Right,
theoretically do those things.
Yeah.
For Halloween that year,
Yeah.
I was Batman. My smallest brother, I was 11, almost 11. Bob was in kindergarten. He was Robin, and my other brother Jim was Superman. So
And the interesting is, of course, they were friends, and you have Gotham City, which is also New York, but it's two separate cities in the comics. But Superman and Batman were for many years were the only two people who knew each other's secret identity. Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, they knew each other's secret
They
identity.
were all about.
Later in the 1960s, Superman told President Kennedy his secret identity just before Kennedy was assassinated.
They had that one story with Kennedy, and they were going to pull it after the assassination.
Right.
And the family said, no, run it anyway. And they had, I think the splash page showed him like saluting the president, like an image of the image of the
Superman's mission for the president
Something
or
like
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that very well. They were going to pull that.
I remember in like 1962 where Superman had found this device that could destroy metal, and he takes it to the White House and gives it to President Kennedy. This can be used for our nation's defense, And Kennedy is thanking Superman once again for his contribution to the country.
Someone said before we were in our discussion, I don't know if we were away or what, but I think it was you, Rich, that Superman spawned a lot of characters. They sure did. And they were like, if you go back into the 40s, if there were countless number of publishers, and they all had to have these costume, long underwear characters or whatever.
Yeah, tights and
Mostly
boots
with powers,
and
like you
capes,
said.
yeah.
I can think of one exception. Remember the Green Arrow? He had no power, but he was like Batman with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, that's
But,
right. Yeah, it was all just the
but there were a lot of
technology
those
of the arrows.
too. And
Green Lantern with his power
this,
ring.
like it almost became synonymous with comic book, the superhero characters, And of course, the Green Lantern, now is a revival of one from the 40s. Like in the 40s, they had a Flash. This Flash didn't wear the cowl. He wore
the helmet.
a Mercury helmet with wings. And Green Lantern was more mystical than it was scientific. And others too. Others came through it, but
Aquaman. You had
Yeah.
Aquaman
Now,
who had
somewhere-
powers under the seas.
somewhere in the post-war years, I say World War II for everybody else out there, the superhero thing kind of was fizzling. Very few were surviving. So a lot of companies. That's around the time I said Fawcett agreed to abandon publishing Captain Marvel at that time. So, but so other things came in: funny animals, westerns, strict science fiction.
Well, Congress actually got on the comics in the late 40s. There was a big push because they claimed there was too much
right.
sex and too much
Well,
violence in the comics. And they really, a number of the comics disappeared at that time.
Crime and horror, they called
Superman
these
fortunately survived. Yeah. And one of the reasons Superman survived was the patriotism aspect, the fact that he had contributed to the war effort, that he was the all-American hero.
Oh, yeah,
so
they
that kind
always-
of insulated Superman.
And you couldn't find anything objectionable there in those comics, but the EC publications, they specialized in things like Vault of Horror, and Crypt of Terror,
there
and
was some
whatever.
really-
A lot
They got pretty
got into
gruesome
movies in the
ones.
70s.
You gotta see them now.
Of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you
what a
see them now, you can
transition.
see kind of why the objection was. I mean, very graphic. Of course, they are graphic. They're comics, but very gory. A lot of dismemberment, a lot of blood, and
Right. Well,
that sort of thing.
after those radio shows, as we started to say before, you could send in for a product that would be identifiable with this
Decoder
character,
ring
the
and-
decoder,
Yeah,
and
right.
Things
some
for secret compartments.
yeah,
Right.
all kind. Yeah, everything was a secret,
Yeah.
you know, and what you could get out of it.
They're worth a lot of money now.
And
if you
you,
find them.
oh Lord,
yeah.
I wish I kept those things,
Yeah.
but
Some of the Bud
Yeah.
Collier radio
on eBay.
Superman
it
shows
were,
that.
yeah,
I'm
Look on
just
eBay,
going
see
to
what that's
say,
worth.
one of the things I mentioned to Jack before was the toys that came out of, and you were mentioning the girls with the cutout.
yes, oh
but
yes.
in 1932, Tootsie Toy, which is
Chicago, yeah.
a station located in Chicago, they came out with a series of cars, and I just picked up one of them, and they were
Really?
yeah, they were named after
Crazy Cat, Popeye.
Yeah, well, this they had an automobile for Andy Gump, Uncle Walt. K.O. was on one of the,
See?
Herbie
Pectate
and
was on the other one.
Smitty and Herbie and.
K was on one, Pectate was on the other.
Thank you very much.
Well, they also maybe
Yeah, and
I don't know.
now
if it
they're
was
highly
Tootsie, but-
collectible.
right?
Yeah.
But they would make wind-up toys.
Wind-up
like for,
toy,
for
yeah.
babies,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and it would like if it was the dog
The
that we
wind-up
talked about.
Oh,
or
yeah,
that,
yeah.
You know, could you only imagine
Oh.
the value?
Can any
now?
connection between the Tootsie Toy and the Tootsie Roll, as far as you know?
No, I don't think so.
no.
Except they're both made in Chicago,
No.
you know,
That's right.
Yeah.
Chicago
That's right.
area.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tootsie Toy
And
is
they
still
only
here.
threw a toy in their Cracker Jack.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
or-
Cracker Jack, and that is a Chicago.
I think that
Yeah.
stopped making prizes in there too now.
They got like
Yeah,
decals
they're-
and stuff. They
yeah,
saw
they're-
them at the
they're-
ballpark.
Yeah,
yeah,
nothing they can
paper,
swallow.
but all the little metal toys or tin
Yeah.
toys, they were all made by Tootsie. Tootsie
I
Toy.
got one time when I was a kid in there. What is this? It looks like one of the wise men. It was some kind of a Buddhist image, with the Buddha or somebody. I don't know where they got
Yeah.
this from. I bet it was the Orient, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the
all,
way,
all those little toy soldiers and
yeah.
amazing.
Remember the sort of campy Batman and the
60s.
The TV show?
yeah,
Oh,
TV
Adam
show.
West?
It's Adam West, and they're still on there occasionally.
Every Saturday.
The
The
guy
that has
who played the
lasted. I mean,
commissioner,
everybody.
what the hell was his name?
Commissioner Gordon.
Commissioner Gordon. I
Neil
can't-
Hamilton, who had been a
Neil
leading man in the
Hamilton,
30s.
right.
Yeah, and he
Stafford
was so,
Rep as Chief O'Hara,
Yeah.
the ultimate Irish cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, dumb.
Sure, and Bigora commissioner.
Yeah.
You know?
and they were also serious.
Yeah,
This
well,
is
that's
a
it.
job for.
I don't know who he is beneath that mask, but I know when we need him, and
Yeah.
we need him
And he puts the
now.
light out there, and I thought,
Chief,
to myself,
when he says, Chief, there's two things we can be sure of in the world. And O'Hara goes, Death and Taxes, Commissioner? He goes, no, Batman and Robin. but that was the humor. It was so serious.
it was so,
Yeah.
it was so campy that.
And what-
And
Yeah,
that led
Well,
to,
it's
in
one of that
Chicago,
shit,
the
but look
Chicken
how it's
Man,
lasted.
Yeah.
Dick Orkin.
Yeah.
yeah.
My favorite was when they would be walking up the side of the building, and they're obviously just, walking. It's obvious just, and then Jerry Lewis
He was
would
the
open
first
a
one.
window, or Edward G. Robinson. Oh, good evening, Batman.
Santa
Yeah,
Claus.
good to see you. Hello, citizen.
Yeah, right.
We're out here preserving law and order. Wow, it's good. Glad to see you.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis was
Yeah.
the first one there.
I have a lot of crime outside
Oh, yeah.
my fifth floor window.
There was one. At one point, the production company was considering putting a laugh track on it. That would have destroyed the whole thing.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Because it can be viewed by kids watching and wonder what the parents are laughing at. You know what I'm saying? It was so like I say, it was so serious,
Yeah.
and yet, especially that first season stories were well written. They were like a mystery story. If you took out the there wasn't really camp because it was intentional. Camp has to be non-intentional. Something like we were talking about last time. John Wayne as Genghis Khan in that movie. That was camp.
Yeah.
It was so terrible. It was good.
I don't recall that. Yeah.
Stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That's true camp.
I loved it. I think it was one of the very early episodes of Batman where there's a cocktail party at stately Wayne Manor, the home of millionaire socialite Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne is there with all these bankers and other wealthy people, and the call comes in on the back phone. And Alfred the butler comes up to him in the midst of all these people. And in a stage whisper that you could have heard all the way to Metropolis, he says, "It's the bat phone, sir." Yes, Alfred. Well, I'll excuse me, gentlemen.
Right.
I often thought, you want to find out where the hell he is? look at his electric bill because he's got a computer.
He's probably got his own generator. He's a
got his
millionaire.
own generator. Well, maybe
about
he did. Yeah.
IO and
Yeah,
the show was
right.
only on about 2 seasons, wasn't it? Because as
3.
you said, John, you can't write camp.
Yeah.
No.
So it faded away pretty quickly.
But it was
Yeah,
the
I saw
hottest thing on TV
Oh,
for
yeah,
about a
first
year. I mean,
season.
everybody wanted to be
Oh,
in it.
yeah.
All
There was
these
nothing
big
quite like
stars
it,
were
right?
in it.
Yeah.
Before that, I don't think there was anything like it before.
No, there never
No.
been anything. I mean, Superman was. There's no comparison
Oh,
between
exactly.
the George Reeves
No.
Superman show and
No.
the Batman
And
show.
I think our lives were more in sequence, that when you did something in a joking way or the rhetoric of it, you had a background to understanding what that really was
Well,
implying.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff
Uh,
was carried on to Roland and Martin laughing too, because
There you
Same
are.
era,
good.
same time.
Same
Yeah,
idea.
that was,
Because today you cannot have that type of conversation. It's like,
No,
what?
no, and
know,
you,
it's-
you just knew it was escapism, and
Yes.
and all the goofy
Yes.
characters.
Caesar
were
Romero
A
and
release.
Frank Gorshin and
Yeah.
Burgess
Vincent Price.
Meredith
Oh,
all had
Lord.
careers,
Yeah.
but they'll be remembered
Oh,
forever
for
as
that.
the Joker and the
Yeah.
Penguin and the
Yeah.
Riddler. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody knows Caesar Romero is the
Yeah.
Joker. You know.
I guess Frank Gorshin. Somebody said he saw him in person. He was at Gulf Miller's, and he said he was.
I saw him about, I don't know,
What
5 years
did
ago
you-
or so.
what-
He's
what-
gone now.
He was
Yeah,
the
he's
last
gone.
of. He
I-
was
I
the
saw
last
him.
I
of
met
them
him,
to
talked
pass
to him, shook
away.
his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
saw-
was.
I-
He was.
He's got a website.
He
of
did
his-
what he did.
Impressions.
Impressions.
Oh,
He was-
yes.
like Rich Little.
Excellent.
Yeah, he was good though, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Kirk Douglas.
I thought
Yeah,
there was a
yeah.
lot of.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't he?
David
my
Bryan.
God.
what was funny is
I've
a lot
seen
of these.
Rich Little, and I have a Rich Little. He wouldn't. The two Riches wouldn't talk. He wouldn't talk to my Rich Little. He was
Oh.
up. He was performing in Skokie.
Well,
Yeah.
I was watching Mitzi Gaynor over at the Golf Mill,
You
Well,
would
there's
be.
somebody.
and Harry Como was in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
In the audience.
Yeah, but the no, every so often you see somebody walking
Somebody
around.
Yeah.
You know what? I have a theory, though, and I don't know what you think about it, but I don't want to meet anybody that's really big at all, because you have a yeah, right. You have in your
Oh,
mind.
you can be disappointed.
You can, yeah, and that's what
Oh, yes.
and you see some guy and he says some comment, or like Joe DiMaggio was one of my idols. Joe DiMaggio was not a nice person.
No privacy
Really.
there from either.
No.
I talked to another ball player who I'm not going to say who it was. I knew a ball player who knew Joe DiMaggio, and I asked him, because they had played on the same team on the Yankees, and I said, can you tell me anything about Joe DiMaggio? Joe DiMaggio. I don't like Joe DiMaggio. He thinks he's better than all the rest of us.
Who's Bill Scourin?
yeah.
And he, when he said that, I looked at him, and he looked at me, and as if we were both thinking, well, as a matter of fact, he was better than. And then he kind of chuckled. He kind of realized what he had said. He said, "Yeah, well, I don't like him."
Yeah.
That was it.
You know what?
But,
I just received an envelope with Joe DiMaggio on the stamp. So it's out now. So I'm going to
Okay.
save it. It's
Yeah.
canceled, but I'm going to save it anyway.
Well,
I saw him play it,
Cuckoo.
Yeah.
As the everyday people, I mean, let's just use the movie star or something. A singer can only sing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
after that, there's no personality. There's
Yeah.
Well,
nothing.
Unless
And it's
The other
the
guy
same
is
with
sort
the
of funny.
movie
I met
covering
Art
him up.
Roberts.
They play that character.
yeah.
I met Art Roberts a couple times, and
Who's
he had-
Art Roberts?
He used to be a
DJ.
WS, yeah.
Huh?
But
I didn't
he
know.
had two personalities. He has on radio program personality, and then off. He was quite shy. He would talk to you and stuff like
That's
that.
it.
He wouldn't say too
Great
much.
character.
You know, the
Characteristic.
guy who was really shy was Wally Phillips.
Really?
When when Eddie was doing Eddie Schwartz show, we were at WGN on Bradley Place, and there was a like a cabinet that was right behind where the guests were, etc., and a big lock on it, or not a lock anyway. He said, "Oh, that's Wally Phillips stuff. Nobody touches." And you don't approach him. You don't say hello. Before the show. On the show, he was great.
Yeah.
But that's why I said, you
Oh, no.
you meet somebody
You can be
and
very
you get
disappointed.
very disappointed, and then, you're better off worshiping them from afar.
Right. You
Yeah.
almost get the feeling that you were snubbed. I mean, there's that
Yeah.
certain
Yeah, you'd
just cut off.
rather not. You'd rather
Right.
not.
Right.
Carlton
Yeah.
Fisk.
He
Yeah.
ate breakfast every morning over there in Kedzie and Irving Park.
I know.
The old
yeah.
Harris restaurant.
The old Harris
You
restaurant.
didn't bother him.
You
there.
didn't bother
You
him,
didn't
no.
He had his own little booth, and nobody.
And he was reading the paper.
I saw Jackie Cooper once. He was being interviewed, and they asked him about Wallace Beery from the movie The Champ.
Yeah.
And and Cooper says in reality, Wallace Beery was a miserable guy. He was terrible. He was not at all fatherly to little Jackie Cooper. He begrudged him his scenes. He didn't want him he knew the kids steal the scenes. But when people would come up to him and ask him, he found that if he told them that, they would go away so disappointed and so brokenhearted that after a while, when people came up and said, "What was Wallace Beery like?" He said, "Oh, he was a wonderful man." And people, they would go away so happy because that's what they wanted. They heard that he was a nice guy and that he treated me like a real father. And
hold that thought a second.
Yeah.
Okay. How's this? You're not mad at me now, are you, Min? We got 6 minutes to go. Okay. Shall we wrap up with this comic book? Okay. I refer to them as, at least I did in the one, as the illegitimate cousin of the comic strip. And of course, comic strips were more acceptable. But if you had a comic book, you were some kind of a moron, according to. And yet they found that the kids who were reading the comic books became the editors and writers.
Yeah, they learn how to read.
Yeah.
And there's another category of comic book that was very popular with some of us of a certain age.
Classics?
Classics Illustrated.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Last minute book reports, things like that.
Don't read the book, just read the classics. Absolutely. It was better than the Cliff Notes.
You got the book. You didn't read the books. You got the Cliff Notes. You didn't read the Cliff Notes. You went for the classic comic. And went for
there
the
you go.
And you got an A on it. Hey,
I want to say a word about one of my favorite comic strips. Appeared about 1960. Rick O'Shea.
Yeah.
The only real Western that had. Great comic strip, excellent artwork, and the names were just brilliant. I mean, there was the Marshal Rick O'Shea. There was his gunfighter buddy. His name was Hipshot Percussion. The county sheriff was Fat Chance.
Oh, God.
The gambler, the Tin Horn Gambler, was Deuces Wild.
Yeah.
The local minister was Brother Lee Love. And every character had a little play on words like that, and it was spiritual in the sense that every now and then Hipshot, who was this tough guy gunfighter, on the Sunday comics, they would show him riding out into the countryside, and he'd be out there with mountains and trees and rivers, and he'd take his hat off and say, "Boss, thanks for creating such a beautiful world for us."
That was in the Tribune,
right?
Because he left the Tribune. He did something called Latigo. Latigo,
yeah,
which appeared in.
They were going to set it into like the 1880s. They were.
Yeah, it was similar, but not the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of comics we missed though. There's Archie Comics.
I was going to say Archie.
We'll have to do this show again, okay?
We can do
it. Seems like we didn't touch
on it. You got a lot of radio comics. Want to put it that way?
Betty Cooper.
Well, I shouldn't say comics. Really, it's programs. You got the Lone Ranger. I think he was in the comics too for a while.
Yeah.
Then you had Red Rider.
Red Rider.
Still got the Daisy.
You still got the rifles being sold.
The rifle, Red Rider. Yeah.
Now Archie started off. This MLJ was one publisher, later known as Radio Comics. They started. The publication was called PEP, P-E-P, which appeared later. Which just Archie was the lead. So they would have a couple of superheroes in it, Black Hood or some of these characters. In the back, they had. This is supposed to be kind of like Henry Aldrich. This teenage thing Archie started. He took the whole thing over. He took the whole publication over. Archie, I remember I used to read Archie to learn how I was supposed to be as a teenager. So
Veronica Lodge.
Did you ever learn?
Veronica? Betty was Betty's last name.
Betty Cooper, the blonde. Betty Cooper, the blonde.
Was it Cooper?
Reggie Mantle was his. Jughead Jones.
Reggie Mantle was sort of the big man on camp.
He was his rival.
Yeah.
He had a slick down hairdo. I identified Archie being a redhead.
Mr. Weatherby was the principal of the high school. Mr. Weatherby.
I can remember the big graphics on it was Archie. It was like covered almost the whole front page.
Archie was.
Block letters.
Archie is still syndicated too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Artemis Brooks was a takeoff of that program.
Oh yeah.
No, similar. Yeah.
It was a good radio show.
What was the coach's name? It was a Professor Flutesnoot or something.
Professor Flutesnoot was the music teacher.
Who was the science teacher?
Coach Cleats.
Yeah, they're all good names like that.
Yeah,
these guys.
Coach Cleats.
Yeah.
Where does
Anyway,
this come from?
Did any of you guys ever grow up, by the way?
It's the result of a misspent youth.
I can see that. You're still misspending.
If I only like the books as well, the study books.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway,
You're never too old for
To
comic
show you
books.
how inflation, I remember one of the comic strips where Archie was going to take out Jughead, Veronica, and Betty, and he had a 50-cent piece. He had a half, and he's saying, gee, how much can I get for 50 cents? I mean, today you couldn't get anything, but it was at least plausible that they could go out on a half a buck.
candy bar,
Get it all.
Or
Yeah.
McDonald's for it.
Anywho, gang, I think we had a good show. It feels like it to us. I hope everyone out here is enjoying it as much as we have, because we sure do enjoy getting together this monthly, and we're glad you're listening. Tell all your friends, will you? We come on over WRHS. What is that? 89.7.
Keep them cards and letters coming.
Also over. There's a news station. What is it? Oh, here it is. Here we go. We want to thank Kevin of Jack FM 99.7 WRHS Norwich and Smooth FM 88.1 WRWX Harwood Heights for broadcasting this program on the Ridgewood Radio Network. The program was pre-recorded on Monday, July 20th? August 20th.
August 20th.
And thanks for listening. By the way, one little item before we sign off, and one more little item. Yeah, our next show broadcast will be September 17th. We're going to record it anyway. And we're going to go with history of labor and unions in Chicago, because we had such a response from the last one. There's plenty of material left. We're going to do it again. And if you haven't heard the first show, you can go to WindyCityHometown.com and get it. Okay? And one last thing, I just in the one last thing. Great things in history. On today's date in 1957, Bob Keegan pitched a no-hitter for the White Sox. I don't know who he played, who they were playing, but I remember going and circling the date as a kid, and this is a big day.
Really? Yeah.
Remember Bob Keegan?
Yeah.
Kind of a sore arm. He's kind of the extra pitcher. He did it.
Just sort of.
Call him Smiley.
Yeah.
And we're going to be leaving you, folks. So remember, history is much more than a book you keep on the shelf.
We want to thank you for listening to this installment of our monthly roundtable panel show, Meet the Chicago Historians. Be sure to tune in next time when we will have as a topic labor in Chicago, a history of unions in our fair city. Our program comes to you over Jack FM, radio station WRHS 89.7 on your FM dial, which is also available via streaming audio at their website. You can also find our shows at WindyCityHometown.com. Good night, and thanks for listening. This is your announcer, Rich Lang.
This was